4, 3.
Call to me, lands far away.
Elves have forests to protect.
We need to build a wall.
Dwarfs their mines. Men their fields of grain. But we Harfoots have each other.
For I must now wander this wandering day.
We're safe.
You have fought long enough, Galadriel.
No.
Put up your sword.
The enemy is still out there. The question now is where?
It is over.
Nothing is over! Nothing! You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them!
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
Darkness will march over the face of the earth. It will be the end, not just of our people, but all peoples.
Everyone! I am sorry, but their time has come.
The past is with us all. The past is dead. We either move forward or we die with it.
This could be the beginning of a new era.
Away I must wander this wandering day.
To him finally being lionized as in the prime and his prime. Fuck.
Do it!
Shit.
Just do it! Don't let your dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true!
Luke went from being, oh no. Welcome, Slayer Nation. I have some great news for you today. I hope you're all doing great. Nope, that didn't work. One more.
You have failed me for the last time.
Welcome, Slayer Nation. I hope.
If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.
That is eating away at what you love in order for it to shine. And one man's vision is... Sometimes you don't have to make things better for them to be great again. You merely have to Okay. Hollywood continues to slow boil the culture and crazy. Well, right now, Spider-Man actor Andrew Garfield has stepped up and he's fighting motherfucker.
I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it.
And unbearded dwarves, but Prime didn't stop there. They stapled in intersectionality, individuality, biddiga-dig-bee, biddiga-dig-boo.
So it begins. At my signal, unleash hell.
giant slayer.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing today? We are back and we are blasting live from the great state of Texas, where the only thing bigger than our stakes is Hollywood's illusions of grandeur. It's great to be back. You know, we took a break for the Easter weekend, and I missed you all. So we're going to have a great show for you today. But I thought we'd do something different. Instead of typically, you know, when I talk about what we're going to break down, whether it's Disney or a movie or television show, over Easter, I had some family over, you know, and they brought some friends because they were all alone. And they all started talking about the Disney proxy battle, you know, with CEO Bob Iger and billionaire investor Nelson Peltz. And I'm talking about normies now. They were all sitting there discussing, hey, what's going on with Disney? And I was like, well, great. Finally, people are waking up. Except they ended every one of their statements by saying, so what's the big deal? How does this impact my life? So today what we're going to do is we're going to jump from Hollywood to gaming to comics, how everything in entertainment is trying to not only shape our culture, but poison it. How does it directly impact your life? So are you ready? Well, let's get going. Welcome, SlayerNation. I am thrilled to welcome our very first guest. It is her first time here. She's not only a beacon of hope for free thought and fearless expression. This is a woman who got her start in gaming and built her kingdom on YouTube and just released a brilliant documentary I can't wait to share with you. But she also has an authentic voice, cutting through this digital wilderness of emotional echo chambers. She blazed her own path. So give a big SlayerNation welcome to the indomitable and unbeatable Gothix.
Wow, that was an amazing introduction. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to have you here. I loved your documentary.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, it was very enlightening, very enlightening. I mean, I just didn't realize how much you went through. I've watched your videos for a long time, but I mean, like, you really got into it and you speak for a lot of people. I mean, discovering it's like you weren't the correct type of person. I've never, we hear that all the time in social media, but when you see someone whose videos you're watching and then you get to interact with them, you're like, wow, you know,
yeah,
you went through hell.
I went through hell. Oh yeah. And I have a story to tell because of it. So I guess I'm grateful in a sense.
Absolutely. But it looks like it made you stronger, tougher, more resilient. Now you're speaking for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So let's get everybody else so we can get this going. Our next guest, this is also his first time here. Now, this isn't a guy who just entertains. He also educates. He blends together like humor, but also with a depth of knowledge that makes cinephiles cheer and movie moguls cry. Put your hands together for the Salty Nerd Podcast, king of wit and criticism. It is a one and only Matthew Kadish.
Hey, all. Thanks for that great intro, George. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. We're here at the Las Vegas Podcaster Studios getting ready for the Nerdrotic meetup. So a bunch of YouTubers are coming into Las Vegas this week, and we're going to be hosting them here in our studio, and we're really excited to get to meet all of them and hang out and have a good old time.
Wonderful. Yeah, I was there last year at your studio. Beautiful place. You had, I think it was Robert Barnes was there, and then there when they were doing the...
that was the other studio we don't talk about. So,
oh, okay. Well, we want to talk about it then.
One of our competitors out there.
Okay. Well, now, this guy, you know him. It's his second time back. He always brings the fun with him. He is an award-winning comic book writer, illustrator, and the co-creator of All American Lawman. He likes to color outside the lines, but he can do that because he's got principles as hard as bedrock. He adds a little bit of extra red, white, and blue in your life. Put your hands together for the bold and brilliant Gabe Eltaeb.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited about Vegas too, Matthew. I didn't know you were the host of that stuff. I was to that the Vegas party the last 2 years. It was awesome. So looking forward.
Yeah, we're going to be hosting Friday Night Tights this year and all that fun stuff. So
no, I'll come. I'll go in the studio on Friday. Sure. That's awesome.
You're gonna be there this week, Gabe?
I'm the mayor of Las Vegas, dude. I live in San Diego, but I'm in Vegas all the time. Of course, yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome.
You're gonna be there too, George? Or?
I'm supposed to be there. Hopefully, I'll know tomorrow. Hopefully, yeah. Then we'll get together. Absolutely. Right. We got our last guest. Now, this is a good friend of mine. He always puts a smile on my face. I'm happy when he's here because he's got a brilliant mind and a way with words that makes me, as a writer, a little bit jealous. This is the healer of haphazard scripts, the go-to guru for storytelling, our own very own cinematic alchemist, the one and only Script Doctor.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I wish I had a better way of words than I have currently, because I just learned through a weird text from my goddaughter that there's a term called lemon in fan fiction, and I don't want to repeat what that means. So I'm kind of thrown off by it.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
So, the world's changing ever so crazily as with each generation, as it has since the dawn of our existence.
But doesn't it seem a little weirder this time? I know probably every generation says that, but it feels different, like it's eating itself.
I wonder about that. There's no way to know, because you'd have to live your life, then die, and then live another one. Then you could start to compare. I do remember reading about historians talking about Julius Caesar when he was like a teenager and all that. And like, they're disrespectful. They don't tuck their robes in right. And they don't sit when adults or stand when adults enter the room. So I do feel like we've been here before as people. There's no way to know.
It goes in cycles. I mean, as a person who likes to dabble in history, one thing I can say is that humanity has always been clowny in some regards. We all do weird, strange things. It's even like kings and queens and cult leaders and all that stuff. It's blurs the line with their actions of what they're doing. So you're like, it's always ridiculous. We are just more used to certain points of levels of ridiculousness than other generations, and the new levels of ridiculous that come through, we correctly identify as ridiculous, but that will one day become the norm, and we should all weep as a result of that.
Also, communication's so instant nowadays, where in Roman times it used to take months to get news about stuff, and nowadays it's like, what, somebody did something I didn't like, just heard about it instantly.
Right. That's the one thing that actually that I really love about Gothix and the way she speaks. She tries to elevate the conversation. It's not just someone sitting here throwing Molotovs back and forth. Because a lot of people, who are fighting in the culture war, they have a right, exactly. But I like the way you try to elevate everything, Gothix.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise the other option is just to keep throwing Molotovs at each other and then nothing gets done. It's like I get that people are angry, but at some point you have to extend the conversation beyond just slinging insults at one another just because someone made you feel bad.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I'm going to read a couple of super chats because they came in real quick, and then we'll get going. Fletch, pull those up real quick because I think we got a couple. Fletch, let's just go here. We got one from John McKinley. Where is it? Okay, having a few technical difficulties, which isn't but we'll get there. So I'm going to first post what I wanted to start. We're going to do this in reverse. Here it is. This was a comedian named Tyler Fisher. Claims he was rejected by his agent for being white. Now, I've been following his story, and I wanted everybody to hear what he had to say because it's pretty interesting. Here we go. Can y'all hear this? Tell me.
Nope.
You can't hear it.
Policy,
Here,
like
there we
explicit.
There we go.
Is it a policy like explicit that they're not taking on any like white men, or is it like case by case?
The only exception would be yes, in like on-camera talent, stand up, probably not. No.
Okay, so no white men are allowed for on-camera stuff. Like, is it were they like, we'll wait a year, or is it like it's just kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's right now where it stands, but like, yeah, it could change in a year depending on, if we also thin out our roster, you know what I mean, then it could change,
right?
Or if we, get to a point where casting directors, that's not their feedback anymore. There's feedback, or not even casting directors, studios, production companies, whatever it may be, where it's like, this is what we're looking for. We're open to, reading more.
I don't know.
More diverse would be the actual.
Yeah.
It's mind-numbing. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
So what do y'all think of that? And we're seeing more and more of it as the industry goes, as DEI. It went from 2020 being around 7.4 billion, where it's projected by 2030 to grow to 28 billion a year.
Yeah, I mean, that's just going to keep happening. I'm not surprised by it. And you know, the unfortunate thing is that a lot of people take the bait, and I look at like that audio that we just heard as a divide and conquer is really what it comes down to, because the comedians that they get that are black, they're going to take these roles, they're going to, take these gigs, and then they're going to get criticized for being a diversity hire. And then they'll get mad and then blame that on racism. So it's like this one giant circle of just like, you're exploiting people, and instead of hiring them based on merit, you're doing it based on skin color, and it's going to piss people off.
Right.
Well, in this case here, we actually have a rock and a hard place, which is representation only represents people that they can know they get jobs with, which means that the people that are doing the hiring are the ones in control here. Right. So if the people doing the hiring are saying we're not going to be looking for this demographic of people, it's not to the best interest of the management or agents to have a roster of the people that are just, they know for a fact are not going to get hired.
Yeah.
So that's the other part you also have to consider. Does this comedian have a right to sue them? Sure. If he's upset with them and they're refusing him for that, that's fine. But the thing is, they're refusing them for that, not out of racism. They're just saying, for our liquidity, for our ability to maintain in business, we need to have a roster of people that the studios that we're going to be pitching to are going to hire. And that's just the way the business is.
But isn't that a new, it seems like the new business in Hollywood. Okay, so on one hand, we have them where they're like, we want to defeat racism, right? You hear that? We want to defeat it. We want to get this beautiful utopia. But it appears by all the research that I've done, and if y'all want to jump in here, that racism has become the new business model. Hate is a big business now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, this is the communist Marxist divide and conquer. You know, Paul Chato, a good friend of ours,
yep.
He pointed something out to me because he's a little older. I'm 45. I think he's in his 60s. He said, communism never took in America after World War II, the worker versus the employer, because the middle class did so well that the working at even the tire factory, you could buy a home, send your kids to college, take a vacation. So the workers in this country are like, nah, communism's lame. We're doing great being blue collar. So they switched it to identity politics, but it's still just divide and conquer communism to control the masses, to make sure the elites stay rich and stay powerful, get us all yelling at each other, so we don't look up at them and what they're actually doing to us. And it's disgusting. My daughter's a stand-up comedian, and she's a great one. She's a professional stand-up. She's just won her 5th roast battle in a row. I took her up to Hollywood last week to do it again. And 2 more, and she's the champ for this year.
Oh, bring her on sometime. That'd be great.
Yeah, she's hilarious, my daughter. She's a great improver. I help her write a few of the jokes. But I know that world and how tough it is. She's 27. She's been doing this since she was 16, stand-up comedy at the clubs professionally. And it just pisses me off because I know what she goes through to finally become a paid professional about in the last 2 years, what it's like for those people, open mic, hitting multiple clubs in one night. And I don't know this guy on the recording. I don't know the context, so I can't. But from what I heard, it's absolutely disgusting. And I do wonder, I'm not white, but I often want to ask white people, what's wrong with you people? You're being attacked and you do nothing about it. You're being told you're racist, bigot. They're destroying your culture, your country, everything you guys built. And you're like, I don't know. They'll call me racist if I stand up to them. I don't get it at all. I don't take notes from anyone. You know that about me,
evidence
George.
to suggest that we are, even though it's basically the bad apples out of the majority. I mean, they seem to have, they bring receipts, but they also ignore all this stuff where it's like, white people also kind of ended slavery in North America too.
Right.
Like they that's my defense of it, at least on my side of things. And especially whenever I would be called a slave owner, I'm like, well, my family didn't come to North America or the United States until about 60 years after slavery was abolished here. So if you're trying to get reparations from me, you're barking up the wrong tree.
Right.
And you're racist for assuming that. And that kind of stymies them for a little bit. But at the same time, it's like we've had generations, unfortunately, being told of the atrocities of white masses against minorities, completely obfuscating the fact that it's an egregious aspect of our history that every culture has been either an oppressor or the oppressed from one to another. It's a horrible aspect of this, and the fact that it's the only egalitarian aspect of our society as a planet, that we've all done it to each other, is completely ignored because it doesn't benefit the certain people that are calling it out today who want to take advantage of such history and such crimes.
Like we've all been. Go ahead, man.
I can say that when it comes to Hollywood, I never attribute to malice what can be attributed to greed and stupidity. Because I mean, like I used to work in the industry, and when I was there, it was very hard for people of color to get like roles that were like outside of like, the drug dealer or the street hood or like, like whatever. And when the Me Too movement happened, there was like this big backlash towards like the entrenched like power structure hierarchy at the studios, where they got rid of a lot of these like creative executives that, were kind of like emblematic of the old school. And they replaced them with a lot of liberal women who then made it their mission in life to kind of try to prop up people who had been historically like abused and neglected and stuff like that in the industry. But they've overcorrected on this. And basically they're giving financial incentives to, these agents and managers who operate, for those of you who don't know, they operate off commission. So like basically whatever deal they can get for their client, they get like a 10% commission or 15%, depending on, like who it is. So basically these studios are basically incentivizing, hey, we want more people of color. And if you look at the commercial production business, the people who make commercials, I defy you to find a white male in any commercial like recently. Like maybe like 10% of the commercials have like a white dude.
If they need an idiot, then they have a white male. Someone
and like 5% of those are heterosexual white males as well. So like like it's been happening in the commercial business for a long time because all these like people who commission commercials are like DEI corporations. They're like, we want to appeal to a broader demographic, blah blah blah. And for commercials, I can kind of see it working because sometimes you want to target your video towards a black woman, or you want to target your video towards a single mom, or like whatever the case may be. But now that it's getting to the point where it's like the Oscars are like, you have to have a certain amount of diversity in your movie or you're not eligible. Studios are like, we need to have like a certain amount of people of color so we can get the DEI money, and so on and so forth. And it's getting to the point now where it's going to snap back, and there's going to be like an even bigger backlash out in terms of like people will be voting with their dollars, right? So like they won't be going to see these like quote unquote diverse movies because the casting doesn't make any sense, right? But then they'll be accused of being racist because they don't go and see it. Like we saw that with the Marvels, right? Where it's like, why didn't you see this woman power feminist movie?
Because you're misogynist.
Because you're a misogynist, right?
Except women didn't go.
Yeah, that too. Women are misogynist.
Right. The thing is, you make a great point. What I want to understand is the reason I brought up the comedian, because we have more examples, is how do we communicate? How do we explain people sharing our own experiences, how Hollywood impacts their life day by day? You have any way to do that, Gothix? I mean, but when you make your videos, like I've been trying to find a way, how do we tell them, when you watch this movie, when you buy this, when you support this, this will come back to you? Because it looks like woke, I view it as a cult. They've weaponized people's tolerance, kindness.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I tell people. It's like, the phrase how they say politics is downstream from culture.
Yep.
So if you have a culture that is all regurgitating the same line of thinking, you're essentially socially engineering people to be on the same path. Like everyone is agreeing with this particular thing. And so when I see Hollywood trying to hire people strictly for diversity quotas, and they're obviously trying to paint a specific social justice narrative, I look at that as like, okay, these people think that consumers are stupid because it's like, I have the same criticism with like the Ariel movie, right? It's like, okay, who would be more interested in watching a Disney movie where they take primarily a historically white actress, they make her black? It would be probably people who think that their identity is rooted in their skin color. So if you can get a bunch of people to support movies where they play into identity politics, then logically that would eventually translate into voting. Like, who are you going to vote for? Someone who also believes your identity is rooted in identity politics. So like, as far as how would I wake people up, I don't know. And I find that oftentimes people don't wake up until it ends up on their doorstep, like it did for me. But like I tell people, this is just, our culture is shaped by our surroundings, and there's a reason why I get a lot of backlash for the things that I say online, because society expects me to use my platform for a specific narrative. So what does that tell you? It tells you that people in influence are very powerful and they can shape the way society goes in any direction.
But to just go off of what she just said, there's a danger to this DEI stuff, right? Where if you look at Netflix and their Cleopatra documentary, they literally rewrote history. And there are people out there who will watch that documentary and be like, oh, Cleopatra was black. And it's like, according to all historical records, no, like that's just not the case. And so like when you have situations like this where basically like entertainment is taking a certain position, it has the ability to basically change people's minds and previously held beliefs to a certain extent, where basically you can wage a war on religion, you can wage war on social norms, you can wage war on morality itself. I mean, like if you look at the evolution of the gay movement, right? Used to be like if you were gay, you had to hide it, nobody would accept it. And then over time in Hollywood, they started trickling out like gay storylines, right? And it got to the point where now everything's gay.
Mhm.
Everyone's like, okay, gay is cool, like we don't care, blah, blah, blah.
Started with Will and Grace, pretty much.
Well, it actually started in the fashion industry where you had like, prominent gay photographers who would make the supermodels look like boys essentially. And over time, you introduce gay storylines. I remember Roseanne, it was like a big thing when she had like the lesbian kiss on her show and stuff like that.
Sandra Bernhardt, Ellen.
Yeah, it was like little by little, they worked this stuff into the consciousness until they were able to shift it so that society became accepting of that type of lifestyle and that type of sexual orientation. And that's the power of media, because like if you look at it, they're trying to do it now with the trans stuff, right? But a lot of people are pushing back on that because they're going after children, they're going after like all types of like groups that have like mental illness and all this other stuff, but they're interweaving it into politics now, right? Because politics is downstream culture. So all this stuff that's happening, it's dangerous, because if Hollywood gets the message where they're like, okay, this is what we want to promote, and this is what we want to push, over time, they will eventually succeed if there's no pushback.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what we're going at.
It
That's
is.
what's happening in gaming right now. That's what's happening in movies and TV. The only thing that's a little bit different is podcasting. But even then, you have situations where like podcast networks are like, oh, we want female-centric programming, because that's the vast majority who listens to podcasts. So it is about kind of following the money. But what's really nefarious about what's going on right now are the financial incentives from like BlackRock and these other like mega corporations, where they're like, we need to force behavior by incentivizing it with money, and we're going to give you money if you do this behavior, and if you don't do this behavior, we're not going to give you money. And every corporation is like, we like free money, so why don't we just do it? I mean, like, it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah, you're
And
describing
the
the Overton window.
we don't know
Right.
why they want to do it this way.
Like, really?
If we can find out the exact motivations, like the specific thing of what they serve to gain out of it, like
It's
specifically
obvious.
right away, because control is very abstract, but there's always something more specific.
It's very obvious why they do this. It's about the evil and the riches. If they give us bad cultural movies, music, all of it, then we succeed less and they get more money. They get more policy for them, more, and they just rip us off with all their Ukraine money and all their stuff. That we know why they do this. The elites do this to keep us as tax-paying cattle. That's what this is about. If we're disorganized, we destroy the nuclear family, we destroy our heritage, we destroy our religions and our customs and everything, then we're worthless people just living on getting high and just going from one dopamine hit to the next, and we won't succeed. And the more we fail, the more they succeed. It's obvious why they do this. It isn't. I'll push back a little bit, Matthew, on what you said about ascribing it to malice versus stupidity and all that, or whatever it was you said. This is about evil. This is about hatred. It absolutely is. They see us.
I said when it came to Hollywood, don't attribute malice to what can easily be attributed to greed and stupidity.
Sure, I think the middle management
on the BlackRock side, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the elites. They don't. I think what people don't understand is they don't see us as humans, man. We're cattle to them. We're nothing to them, and they want us divided and conquered. And you divide a culture by destroying the good things in its culture. Is it any wonder why all the woke stuff is antithetical to our traditions that are now thousands of years old? The traditions that we have, they're thousands of years old for a reason, because they work. They've been tried billions of times with billions of people over the millennia. We're like, okay, we figured this much out. Let's keep going. Nuclear family, pretty good. Hard work, pretty good. Being honest,
nuclear family is only about 120 years old, because prior to that, you had 8 or 10 children. Nuclear family is about 2.4 kids. And I personally want to have more kids myself.
Sure.
Because, I like the big families. But to your point, it's not necessarily evil. It's also fear. Because if they're doing this, it means that whatever institutions they have built for themselves now that have given them this great power, they see as being in jeopardy from the masses. Right? Because it's not necessarily about, oh, if they have all this power, it's like, well, they have this power. They're at the top. It's going to be generational to their own family bloodlines for thousands of years, most likely, given the amount of wealth they've accumulated. So what is the reason why they're doing it this way at this point now? It's either they see a threat or it's either just evil. I think it's more on the side of they see a threat, because if the masses are able to take away that power and basically allow for a more naturalized egalitarian society, which means that we all have our nationality, we all have our traditions, but we're able to communicate with each other in a far more respectable, polite manner without actually intruding on whatever our cultures have at that point. If they are worried about that and their control looking several centuries into the future on a speculative idea, that would justify why they're doing this now at this point, because they've never had as much power as they've had before, and they're afraid that it's going to be usurped from them by other people. It's not evil for the sake of evil. There's always something behind it that's motivated far more specifically.
I agree completely with what you said, but I would contend that that's evil. To do bad things to people, for the elites to do this to us, the masses, out of their own fear and greed and worrying about losing the rich, that's still an evil motivation.
Really?
So the only evil thing motivated in the world is to hurt others for your own gain. That's the only evil.
Always. But here's the thing. Everyone that they're using right now. So today, right, we just saw this comedian, but we have other examples. So it's like, okay, we're not going to hire you right now. We can't represent you because we can't get you a job. Okay. But at the same time, whoever they're giving the job to, whether it's a black person, a brown person, whoever it is, they're using them. That they're not sitting here going, okay, we believe in a meritocracy. They're using the old communist system, which is how you mentioned earlier, Gabe. We went from they couldn't bring the class warfare here, especially after the Soviet Union collapsed. Right. There was no way. The middle class was too successful. It built a foundation. So they're like, okay, we have to divide people another way. But let's say today they're like, we're only going to hire black people. Okay. What happens when that doesn't work out for them? Meaning, the way they're using them, they're going to go on to the next group, and to the next group, and to the next group, and to the next group. That's how we have to get people to wake up. Everyone right now is temporary when you go to the allies like Vanguard or BlackRock or State Street, or if you want to talk about Hollywood. It's like Ava DuVernay's company. I was looking at it. Array Crew. Has everybody heard of Array Crew?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Array Crew basically is, where is that link? I am a technical incompetent, just so y'all know. It's just not one of my big. So Array Crew, she started this company in order to promote what she calls below the line hiring. There we go, below the line hiring. Let me blow it up. So what's for below the line? There we go. It is below the line hiring. Can everybody read that now? Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so it's like created by filmmaker Ava DuVernay. Array Crew is a personal database designed to connect below-the-line crew professionals with a special focus on the amplification of women, people of color, and those from underrepresented backgrounds with producers, studio executives, and department heads. And she goes on, they're supported by Amazon, Discovery, 824, Lionsgate. Membership is free. Here's the problem. They've had people go up to them to get a job. They won't hire you at all. If you're biracial, they won't hire you. You have to be brown, black, Indian. Like, they have specific categories. And I'm sitting here going, isn't that racism? Isn't that the same thing that happened with Black Girl Gamers?
Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of this discrimination against Asians.
Yes, there is. I was getting to that. Very good point, Matthew. So I want to ask you, your experience. Can you give everybody a little snapshot of what it was like when you were with Black Girl Gamers and how it?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the backstory is I used to stream on Twitch, and I joined a couple of communities, one of them being Black Girl Gamers, because at the time I believed the lie that it would be harder for me to grow as a content creator because I was black. This is what people were telling me who were already on the platform. So I'm like, okay, well, logically, it makes sense for me to join a community and we can uplift one another, the whole slogans that you usually hear from these groups. And so I joined it and I was with them for a couple of months. Everything was fine until I started saying things online that didn't align with their narrative. And I didn't know that they had a specific narrative at the time until I started to see people talking negatively about me. And eventually it got worse when I went on social media and I questioned why people were accusing white people of being racist if they had a problem with tokenizing characters. So in my instance, it related to The Little Mermaid. Like, why are you Ariel, why are you calling people racist if they have a problem with Ariel being white? I mean, being black. That doesn't make any sense to me. And so people in this community translated that into me being anti-black, me being problematic, me hating white black people. And so that pretty much woke me up from that community. And I started to really ask questions about like, well, this doesn't make any sense because you're saying that you guys are all about diversity and you're all about inclusion. Clearly not, because I look like you and you are not including me. So what's going on? And then I realized over time that all of this DEI crap, it's really about cultivating an ideological echo chamber. It's a specific narrative, has nothing to do with skin color. And I hate to say it, but people who benefit from these types of communities or programs are useful idiots for communists. That's all they are. And the way that you would disarm the DEI people is to look at yourself as a human being and stop being entitled, thinking that you are owed something just by existing. And that's how you disarm them. And so that's really how it started with me. And then I saw Black Girl Gamers trending on Twitter the other day because people are in the gaming community are now being more aware to DEI. And so, I chimed in and, they wrote a 33-part thread about me.
I saw. It's amazing, but so they embrace DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, but they have no diversity of thought. Diversity of thought is not allowed.
Right.
Yeah, and they know that. They know that they're not consistent. They're very double-minded in what they espouse, and they know that. And the only reason why someone like me gets a lot of flack for calling them out is because they have a product to sell, which is victimhood, which is blaming all of your problem on the patriarchy, the white man, whatever. And if you have someone like me who lives outside of that narrative, their product is meaningless.
Yeah, I remember when that was called hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It is hypocrisy.
But what's funny about the whole gaming space is that in the gaming space, a lot of these companies are hiring these consultancies because they believe that women have like a larger kind of like consumption rate of video games than is actually true. Because like if you look at the stats, they're saying like, 40% of video gamers are women, right? But what they don't tell you about that is maybe like 5 to 10% of that is actual gamers, whereas the rest of that is like mobile gamers who are like playing like Candy Crush or something like that. And so these video game studios are being fooled into thinking, we have to appeal to more women. And so they're hiring these DEI consultants to come in and be like, not only do you have to appeal to women, but you have to basically, appeal to women of color. But in addition to that, you also have to get rid of sexist, misogynist stuff if you want to attract these women. So you can't have the male gaze, you can't have sexy female characters in your games and all this.
Why not?
Stuff.
See, that's the thing is why not? See, that's the part where I want to get to 1 second. It's like you can't have that. But Gothix said something, right? That's the point. But you said something, Gothix. You said that they know what they're doing. Like I always figure that people who are in a cult, or how I view it as a cult, all of them.
Yeah.
That they live in a bubble, in the delusion. But do you think some are self-aware? Like they know this is hypocritical and they don't care?
Yeah, I think that they don't care. Like, I'm not going to say that every single person that pushes DEI is doing it with malice intent.
Correct.
I legitimately believe there are people who think that they're doing a good thing because they're playing by the rules of DEI. And DEI says, these are our enemies, so this is your enemy too, right? And so these people, I think, in an effort to protect, I call it their idol, their God. Their God is the DEI machine. In an effort to do that, it's like they know that they're being hypocritical. Like what you're saying is racist, but you don't see yourself being racist, but at the same time they're playing by their rules that, oh, black people can't be racist. So you know what I mean? So it's like they weaponize language and to use it to fit their specific agenda. But I think everyone who does something like this to their core knows that they're doing something wrong, but there's a part of them that they believe that what they're doing is right because they're following culture. And that's the thing. Like Matt, you mentioned this thing about data. It's obvious these people have never read a Thomas Sowell book in their life. They don't know anything about skewed and cherry-picked data. And the reality is that every single piece of evidence that we have it comes from someone's authority. So someone who is in a specific field puts together this data and they said, this is what it is, right? And so when these companies are looking at this obviously skewed data, they're not asking questions. They're trusting that the person they got this research from is telling the truth or is competent.
Good point. Good point.
It's a mess.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Let's read some super chats, see if there are any questions. Fletcher, can you bring them up? We got Steel Leg of History, member for 3 months. I just hit 326 subs. Thanks for the support. Be blessed. Congratulations. On the way to 500. Mexican Iron Man, our intrepid producer. He's not here today. He gifted 10 Georgia Giant Slayer memberships. Thank you, my good friend. Don't know how I'd do without you. And we got John McKinley for $10. Somebody yell George. Hail, all of you beautiful people. Gonna fight for liberty. So I'll catch on the stream later. Peace. He must be playing Helldivers.
Must be.
Olaf, member for 3 months. How you doing, my friend? Hey, George. You give all guests epic introduction. I appreciate it, my friend. Great. We can't wait to see you on the membership stream. Thunder Thumbs for $20. Been a fan for a while, Sir George. GOP. Go have a blessed Sunday. Go have a blessed Sunday. Okay. Taylor Swift greater than Disney, Star Wars, and MCU for $1. Taylor Swift greater than Disney and Star Wars. Okay. I guess you mean economical. Oh, shit. My nuth fell off for, is that Australian? No. Is that Austrian? For 50 something, for 50 shekels. I hate the new Dunes Brutalist look, but I love the 84 version. I love the 84 version. You should go check out the Spice Diver edition.
Lynch is awesome.
Argentinian pesos. That's what it is, for 50 Argentinian pesos. Thank you, oh shit. Deborah Stafford for £5. It's a super sticker. Thank you, Deborah. Really appreciate your support. It helps keep the lights on. Mr. Buttcrack Media is back. You are such a generous supporter. He is. Gifted 20 Georgia Giant Slayer memberships. Let me tell you, Mr. Buttcrack, every time you do that, again, it helps us to make more videos. And it means the world. Thank you, sir. And we got Warg76 for $20, long-time listener, first-time caller. We're living not in 1984, but they live. Conform, consume, obey. I think I've always viewed like the woke to be, in many ways, an ideology that is to program. Now, I'm generalizing. I hate generalizing, but to program, it's like woke is to make losers feel like winners, so the people behind them pulling the strings, the few can control the many. That's what I've always viewed it as.
It's just another new device of totalitarian control.
Authoritarianism. Absolutely. SD0 became a YouTube member. Congratulations. Can't wait to see you on the stream. Sophie for $2. Hail199. Do you have a butter dish? Love you all. Yes, I have a butter dish. We were talking about that last night on Yellow Flash. Princess Fiona for $5. Great to see you, Princess. Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities.
Yep.
Remember this when they try to compel your thinking. It's never enough. It never is. See, again, they're in many ways, they're following Mao's playbook. Destroying the traditions, getting people to go along. It's just, how do you get people to be stronger, to go, their words? You can live through them. They may hurt, but you can do it. Skiz Spivak Esquire gifted 10 Georgia Giant Slayer memberships. Thank you, Skiz. Again, you're always such an amazing supporter. Really appreciate it, my friend. So, we've seen the comedian get rejected. We see their DEI companies. Did y'all know that there are 37 new DEI companies that started in 2024? Jeez. In the last 4 months, 37. No, I was shocked. 37. I mean, this came out of nowhere. In 2015, it barely made around $200 million, which to me is a lot. We're talking globally. By 2020, it was up to $7 billion, and now it's estimated to go by 2030 to 28. So how do you combat imaginary racism, which is what they're pushing, with real, I said that wrong.
Real racism.
Real racism. How do you fight their racism and they're promoting? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. It's been a long day.
I mean, politics is downstream from culture, right? Gothix said that earlier. We've all heard that. So we can sit here and complain and analyze, which is useful. But if we then don't go out and do something to make entertainment that is of the highest quality, but it is not woke. It doesn't have to be anti-woke and, oh, I hate Democrats. It has to be just how it used to be in the 80s, like, you know, Indiana Jones. He didn't insert left or right-wing politics. He was an adventurer and he was brave. That should be universal. Everyone should recognize that as universal. So that's why you make your own stuff. You leave Warner Brothers and make your own companies.
You mean like Big Man Comics?
Right. You
like All American Lawman?
Right. I shipped yours yesterday, George. I saw your name when I was doing. I got out all the pre-orders, so those are done. I got a few more to do on Monday and Tuesday, but I got.
But that is a good way. That is a good way. Like today, did everybody see over the last few days that Marvel, right after the Disney proxy battle, we'll go into that now. Now, right after the Disney proxy battle,
real quick, George. Sorry to interrupt. There are two ways to combat this that I just want to.
Throw it out there, please.
The first way is with your pocketbook. Do not support any companies that utilize these DEI consultants or do DEI stuff, like you saw what happened with Bud Light. That does have an impact. But the second thing is to elect people who can put into law anti DEI stuff, but basically get rid of it in government agencies, decentivize it economically, so that these companies can't just fund this stuff without repercussion. So those are the two things I think that can really have an impact on going against this. So it's about who you elect and how you spend your money.
How would we get enough people to vote if they're not encultured that way? If they haven't been watching these kind of movies, this kind of music, if they're not looking at stuff that isn't woke and they're being brainwashed for woke, they're going to go to the ballot box and they're not going to elect the guys that we want. So I think the entertainment comes before the voting, unfortunately. I mean, you can see it. People go and they vote woke because they've been hypnotized by woke in the media. So
there are other ways. I mean, the entertainment thing, it's a slippery slope because it's so entrenched with the opposition that you need to basically do a grassroots thing where you're going out, your dinner table issues, you're talking with family members, you're going on social media, you're screaming at the top of your lungs just to get the message out and fight to get, the right people elected. In addition to doing your spending your money with companies that don't do this type of thing.
I hate to disagree, but again, politics is downstream from culture. So the voting happens after the culture.
There's no way to take away the culture at this point before the voting happens, right? Because right now they're entrenched. You have
now
people
funded culture, so now it's basically they're funding themselves.
Yeah, I mean, basically, you have like the Daily Wire out there trying to do some conservative leaning stuff, but overall, the Hollywood stuff, it's all owned by the left. It's all owned by the people who are pushing the DEI stuff. You don't have time to take it back. Like this is a multi-generational thing that you have to do the shift over. But like right now, it's important to get the people elected who can open up the opportunities to fight back against this type of thing. So
we have the
elections over anything else, really, because you can do more as a mayor than you can as a senator and as a governor in some regards, because that's just how it is. And that comes down to parenting and also fighting for institutions that help with parenting. Like I know a lot of people say take your kids out of public school. That's a fair argument. But the thing is, you should try to actually save public schools from the DEI and entrenchment in that, because any smart parent knows that they cannot teach their child every single subject known to man when it comes to raising them or appeal to every single part of their interest. While there are definitely great opportunities for it out there now, ideally, you would like your child, if they want to grow up to become something, to seek out an actually vetted, successful expert that can teach them that and train them into that regard. Public school offered that initially, and it has been manipulated over the last 30 to 40 years to essentially just be a programmable worker in an office or sadly not at a factory, because so many factory jobs have been, shipped away.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where it is, because the whole concept of the public school is like, oh, you get to teach children certain things that the parents might not know, but the parents are still involved, and they have to be involved. We had, unfortunately, baby boomers and Generation X not involved in children's education on the public side of things for their children, so that these certain aspects have now come in, taken over, and completely gutted a system. And if you think you're safe in private school, I got another bridge to nowhere to sell you, because
that's
it's in there too as well.
No,
Yeah,
my son went to a private school. He graduated like 7 years ago. He went to a private high school. And I remember a year or two after he graduated, they threw a kid out or sent him home because he had a Trump hat on at the private school. So
yeah,
the wokeness is everywhere. So.
Also, don't discount that a lot of this stuff is being funded by China, right? Like a lot of these companies, like they have Chinese money behind them, pushing them to go in this direction. You have Chinese money basically infiltrating Hollywood and forcing them to go for like the communist ideals. I mean, McCarthy had it right. Hollywood was completely infiltrated by communists over time, and this is the eventual result. But it all comes down to greed and money, right? Because it's China that's actually funding a lot of this stuff through backdoor channels. That's espousing stuff that leads to the fall of our civilization, like transing the kids, communist ideals, like sowing division, DEI. All this stuff is meant to basically rot us from the inside out, so that we're easier to conquer.
Right. There's something that Gothix had stated on her Twitter. I was trying to find it, but I'll read it because I put it in my notes. You wrote, Gothix, most social justice and climate change activists are trying to create heaven on earth because this is the final stop for them.
Right. So I was going to interject here because you guys are making some great points. And I agree that before someone gets to the ballot box, they're going to vote based on the values that they have. And so for most people, they get their values from culture. So what is before culture? Like the reason that the culture is the way that it is because people are imposing their values into culture. So there's something that transcends the current culture. So to that, the point of that tweet, like that's the reality of like most people. If you consider most people who believe in this woke stuff, most of them don't have they're not grounded in any particular belief system outside of culture or politics. Like
no faith.
There's no faith. Most of them are atheists, and that is the ideal person to exploit in terms of communists, is that these people are not grounded by anything in particular, and so you can exploit that. You can get them to adapt to this particular worldview or whatever, just go wherever the culture goes. Whereas someone like me who is a Christian, it's like, okay, you can spew your woke rhetoric, but I'm not going to fall for it because I'm obedient to a higher power. Whereas these people, if they don't believe in a higher power, their higher power is the government, it's celebrities, it's their friends, it's whatever is in their surroundings. And in the most absolute sense, if someone doesn't believe there's anything after death, then logically they're going to try to make reality as perfect as possible for them, which is where I think a lot of these bizarre ideas come from, of trying to create a utopia. Is we're gonna get rid of racism. You can't get rid of evil. It's always gonna be here.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I think when you go back, your religion, I'm a Christian too. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and He is risen. And I would say that's what our culture is built on in the West. Christianity did build the West. And there's scientific research that shows you will be religious like 80 or 90% chance if your father puts the religion in your home and your family. If the mother takes you to church and the dad's not involved, it's a much lower chance of you being religious. You look at the Western culture now, the father has been villainized, marginalized, and destroyed all across the West. Toxic masculinity. Imagine if they applied that phraseology to anything else. Toxic African, toxic Mexican, toxic Asian. It's blatant on its face. It's so blatantly racist. It's insane. And to destroy the father from our culture is what all of this is about. I'll ask you, Gothix, as a woman, because you can observe us from the outside. We're on the inside. The rest of us as men. The problem with all of this, the hub of this horrible wheel of woke, is men. Men are weak in the West. They're cowards. They don't stand on principle. They don't stand for shit. They won't tell anybody, hey, no, that is wrong and that's evil. They won't do it. I walked away from Warner Brothers after working 15 years as an artist for DC Comics. I get praised all the time. You're a hero. You left that job. I made all this money, Superman, Batman. And I think, a hero? They're asking me to make a book with sexuality and teenagers in it. How am I a hero? I'm like, no, I don't do perverted comic books, you weirdos. I don't feel like I was given a chance, but I see so many guys that do. And old colleagues of mine from comics private message me, hey man, I'm really proud of what you did, but I got to pay my rent and blah, blah, blah. And to me, all of this ends when men find their...
There you go. You nailed it right there. When people...
And start telling people, no, this is crap and we're not doing it.
You got to get uncomfortable. People, men especially, have to get comfortable being uncomfortable again. I think too many people
start learning outside of a single skill. Like that's the other part too. A lot of those guys at the comic book artists over at DC and Marvel that this is the only thing they can do. They don't have any other skills.
So what? Your dignity isn't worth doing evil. I don't care.
No, that's not the point. The point is the fact that they were not properly raised to have a diverse set of skills. I'm a screenwriter. That is not my only skill. I literally can work in tech, plumbing, carpentry. I can do landscaping. I can do architecture. And I've also done publishing. I've got a very diverse set of skills. I will never be without a job, which is why I was able to weather the writer's strike a lot easier than any of my other colleagues. The fact of the matter is that you also have a culture that doesn't actually explore the possibilities of other career opportunities. It's like, what is your dream job? Okay, study on that. Look at some other things that allow you to better your dream job by other skill sets, other aspects, because if that dream job is not attainable for you, at least you have a backup plan that's not going to leave you high and dry out on the street, or at least at the mercy of someone that is able to control your bank account.
Right. There you go. Let's bring in, we have our last guest here. He's a little bit late, but I can't wait to bring him in. This is the guy, he loves to do deep dives into films and he turns it into an art form. Welcome the sharpshooter of cinematic critique, the Little Platoon. What a day.
Hello. Sorry I'm so late. If you wouldn't mind recapping the entirety of the last hour for me, I'd be much.
No, we would do anything. No, you heard what was going on. Here's something. Well, Gabe was talking. It reminded me of what I saw in Gothix. Gothix, have you met Little Platoon?
I have not.
Oh, Little Platoon, Gothix, Little Platoon.
Nice to meet you.
I was watching her documentary, and you had a clip in there with Thomas Sowell, and he was saying that in slavery, from slave times, it goes, you had the black family always had a two-parent system, a mother and a father. It goes all the way through Jim Crow. There was a mother and a father. He goes, survived all this time, but he goes, in one generation of the welfare state, he goes, it destroyed the family completely. His words, I think he's a national treasure, but he was right in one system. And now Hollywood is doing the same thing to the rest of the country.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't got anything else to add to that.
There's
Like,
nothing
we
you
need to
can't-
read some
yeah.
Tom Sowell.
No,
They
you
started doing it
can't.
in the 70s with stories about divorce and trying to say it's okay if parents get divorced and they get new step parents, stepmother, stepfather, and they get a new family unit and whatnot. And it's like, well, it works in certain aspects, but it also kind of obfuscates the main point, which is, is this a situation where you had a couple that were fools that fools rush in where angels fail to tread, or was there actually a legit problem to address? And they tried to obfuscate that and blur the lines so that they just was like, no, marriage is just optional. You can do it or you can't do it. It doesn't matter. And that it was something that kind of took away the romance of what falling in love was, which is like a commitment. Yes, there are going to be hard times. Nothing is going to be happily ever after. So you got to work your way through it. And if you really care about the person, if you're committed to this promise that you've made, you will take it to the end, because listen, marriage has always been 50-50. You either die first or you get divorced. That's the only way marriage ends. Like it's always going to be 50-50, because the alternative is death. It's either divorce or death. I'd rather do the death, because at least that's a long-term commitment. That's to the, that's fulfilling your vows. That's what you're there to do. That's your promissory to the partner across from you. And, that's the goal.
Well, I want to get now to Disney, talking about the Hollywood side. So we all, or maybe everybody, saw the Disney proxy battle between, Nelson Peltz, who wanted to oust 2 board members so he could get 2 seats and then start writing the Disney ship. So we had Lucas, who made his announcement a few weeks before. He was the largest shareholder of Disney. The day after that, you had Iger was giving an interview, and he was pretty much saying, I'm going to share it here, that, Disney doesn't want to be in woke, doesn't want to participate in it.
Seeding in that?
Well, I think yes. I mean, I think the noise has sort of quieted down. I've been preaching this for a long time at the company before I left, and since I came back, that our number one goal is to entertain. I think, look, the term woke is thrown around rather liberally, no pun intended in that regard. I think a lot of people don't even understand really what it means. The bottom line is that infusing messaging as a sort of a number one priority in our films and TV shows is not what we're up to. They need to be entertaining. And look, where the Disney company can have a...
So they need to be entertaining. He doesn't want to have anything to do with woke. But
it's actually not quite what he said, though, is it? What he
No,
said
it's
is infusing messaging as our number one priority is not
Right.
what we're doing. He's
Well,
not
that's
saying we're not infusing messaging. He's simply saying that our technical number one priority is to entertain first. Now, if that is true, he's failing at that, as in the box office
correct.
will attest. But it's also, and you can find other statements he's made. It might even been from the same interview. Obviously, he says that lots of people don't know what the word woke means. I'd
Correct.
be interested to know what he thinks that it means. I agree that it's thrown around in some places where it really shouldn't be. The kind of the interesting thing is that he gives himself several outs to effectively continue what he's currently doing, which is, he says, obviously we want to stand for good, and if we can stand for doing good things in terms of representation, that's fine, that's brilliant, but the number one priority is to be entertaining. Effectively, he's trying to make it sound like they're doing something they're not doing without actually saying overtly that we are not doing the thing that you think that we're doing, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's called Hollywood talk. And
so do you
they
think
don't
they're
want
gonna-
to define woke, because if they define it, it gives them a target and end goal. And once it's reached, they no longer have the institution to carry on. It's just like the majority of charity scams out there that we want to stop this arbitrary thing. Great. It's going to be a cottage industry now. And that's what they want it for.
Right.
Well, I'm glad that Platoon brought that up, because this is what I was talking about. This was the one part that you missed, is last weekend was Easter. And so we had some people over that family brought who were friends, who were alone. We didn't want them to be alone. And everybody was talking about this Disney proxy fight. Except in the end of the day, they kept saying, all right, now I'm listening to what's going on with Disney, but how does it impact my life? So that was the first portion of what we were discussing. But then I got calls after that interview, because they started to pay more attention. They're like, see, he's not going to do anything woke. They bought that. That's the point, that you are correct, but they bought it. Most people, when they hear that, go, he's right. But then when you show them the headlines that they just cast Julia Gardner as Silver Surfer, and yes, I know comic book fans out there are going to be, they're female Silver Surfers. I get
Wait,
that.
she's the surfer, or she's the surfboard? Because I've seen her physically. She does not look like a.
Well, George, I have to correct you, because last weekend was Trans Day of Visibility weekend.
Oh, I forgot about Trans Day. I know the White House walked it back after the polls cratered.
I never said that.
Here's the video. That's not me.
Well, to be fair, he probably doesn't remember saying.
Yeah. But honestly, like, I think, your situation, George, was a little bit out of the norm, because I think most normies don't pay attention to like the proxy. But like, if you have stock in Disney and you're watching CNBC and you hear about it, yeah, probably. But I think most people, especially like, the kids that they gear their content for, parents and families, the soccer moms, stuff like that, they don't really pay attention to this type of stuff. And so like, and it was kind of interesting that until he won the proxy fight, they were playing it very clean. And then as soon as Bob Iger came out on the other side of that, they're like, hey, we got a female Silver Surfer and a Hispanic Reed Richards and, all this other stuff. And it's just like, it's so transparent. It's just
It is.
It's actually Reed Richards.
Reed Richards? How did you say that again, Gabe?
Rodrigo Richards.
Rodrigo Richards. Let's talk about it. No, here's the point, that it's Matthew is correct in the part. They didn't bring up the proxy. I was just trying not to go too long in the story. They were talking about Disney. They're like, I see Disney every day in the news. And the fact that, I guess to me, it's a big deal when you have everyday normies start talking about the things we are. And I was like, well, this has to do with the proxy battle. They're like, why am I seeing this every day in the news? And this big fight, and it's like culture war, and I don't understand. And I'm like, okay, so we broke through one barrier. The point is, though, they believed, three of the people believed what Iger had stated, just like Platoon said. He didn't say that, but they bought it hook, line, and sinker. And then when I call them up and I go, did you just see this article? And they're like, what article are you talking about? I'm like, okay, it just came out. Because they think that a lot of people, normies, think when they do hear about things in the culture where they think that they're being blown up. And I'm like, okay, well, Fantastic Four, we got this new girl. And one of them happened to be a comic book nerd. And he's like, well, there are multiple surfers. And I actually didn't know that there were multiple. I knew that there was one. That's the one that I always read. And I had heard about a girl. I didn't know that there were multiple. So my point is, do the people who are being used, do they realize they're being used, or they just not care?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean,
Gothix
I'm reminded of an old phrase
Useful idiots.
of when is a politician lying? When their lips are moving. The same thing applies to Hollywood heads and studios. Like, the whole idea of that phrase is to hold those people to scrutiny and not trust them, let their actions speak. Don't pay attention much to their words, because that's where you're going to see a bit more truth. And in this case here, I think you've got a whole bunch of people that are just willing to just listen to the words and not pay attention to the actions because they've probably got other priorities that they feel are more appropriate to divert their attention to, as opposed to these types of things, which for a lot of people, a lot of normies, that's background noise to them.
And also
it's
scripts.
Like my weekend.
People in New York and LA, there is a bubble there. Like when I lived in LA, I was very much aware of it. And it's like people just can't imagine that there are other people out there that don't think the same way they do. It's like, I don't know how Trump got elected. Nobody I know voted for him. Like that type of thing, where it's basically like you're in such an echo chamber and people like, when I lived in Hollywood, I belonged to this organization called Friends of Abe, which was run by Gary Sinise. And it was kind of like basically a support group for non-liberal people who worked in the Hollywood industry, and John Voight was a part of it and stuff like that. And I used to go to these meetings, and they were almost like therapy sessions for people. Like they'd be like so like bundled up emotionally, where like they couldn't speak out against Barack Obama without being accused of being racist. And their children were being indoctrinated, and there was nothing they could say to, change that, because then they'd be called racist or they wouldn't get work or like whatever the case may be. And the bubble's real. And so like when you have these epicenters of like finance in New York and epicenters of culture in LA that never break out of that bubble, like they never hear conflicting or dissenting opinions, because like if you do that, you're blacklisted in both of these places. It creates this situation that we have right now. If you look at Film Threat, they have a series of articles called the D Files.
D Files, yeah, they did number 5 just now.
And it's a great progression of seeing like how Hollywood was taken over. And the reason Disney's in the news so much is simply because Disney for decades has been the epicenter of family entertainment. It's the thing that, teaches kids about like morality and love and friendship and all the ideals that we want our family to have. And because the only way to make change is through generational change, where it's like if you target the kids when they grow up to be adults, they're going to be these crazy people who destroy everything that we're seeing like right now, right? But like, they have to keep taking it further. And so if you target these children's educational structures like the schools and children's entertainment, you're able to basically shift the mindset of the next generation to be more in line with what you want. And that's why Disney it's such a nefarious thing that's happened to Disney like right now. And it doesn't look like it's going to change, because as Little Platoon so eloquently pointed out, Bob Iger, he was the genesis of a lot of this stuff when he was in charge, back when he first came about, after his Weatherman days. So it's like, it's just so nefarious, and it's so blatant that like anyone who pays attention, they're just like, this guy is obviously lying, but no, he suffers no consequences from it. In fact, he gets rewarded for it.
But what do you think, Platoon, with what Matt said? And add on top of that, I want to know, how do you think the Surfer's going to do? Do you think it's just going to be another failure like in the Marvel line? They have any chance?
Well, I mean, I can't really see how it will be very successful. I think, you've got to compound the problem of general fatigue with these increasingly desperate and quite boring superhero films anyway. You're taking a little-known version of a character who's already not the most popular draw anyway, and you're really just continuing this trend of pissing off your core audience in a way that's going to prohibit word of mouth spreading to your casual audience, which means that your film probably won't do as well as it otherwise might have done had you, for instance, picked a more popular version of the Silver Surfer. I'm not very familiar with the backstory of the character. I understand that there are very long and quite popular comics runs featuring the character, and they've chosen instead a version of the character that's appeared in about 3 issues of one comic that nobody read and then was cancelled, which is, again, not a great way of ensuring that you're going to get a big audience for your films. Whether it's going to resonate with the kind of people who complain or who might be about to start complaining that, Disney is inserting woke entertainment into things, I don't know. I think like most people who go to see films as just general entertainment are not big on culture war things. They hear about it by remove. Usually when they hear the term culture war, it's thrown in, say, in the context of a New York Times article when it says Republicans are making a culture war about certain issue, which is basically code for saying it's not a big deal. You shouldn't really pay attention to it. When a film is actually very overtly and unsubtly pushing a particular kind of message, the general audience tends to see it and react against it. There was that interview. Was it Shakira who was talking about her sons seeing the Barbie film?
Yeah, funny. I got that.
Yeah, and she thought my sons didn't like it. Her hips did not.
No,
like
she said it was it
Why'd she take her
emasculated.
sons to see Barbie?
They wanted to go see it for the Ken. And the whole point is she said she wants to raise her sons to be strong, good men. And she felt it was emasculating.
And taking them to Barbie is the way to do that.
That was what she said. It's Shakira.
Again, this is why you don't listen to celebrities. They're dumb. But to the point, there's also a Greta aspect to this. Between the traditional Norn Rad Silver Surfer and the Shalabal Silver Surfer, which one is more valuable?
Norn
Rad.
Yeah.
Because the creator Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and them, those estates have to be paid when you use them. I don't think there's any type of stipulation for the estate of Shalabaz one time as Silver Surfer that requires a payout by Marvel to those creators at the same level that would be for Norn Rad. So they're getting 2 for 1 out of this.
Wait.
They're still using Galacticus, though.
One question I have. I just don't want to lose my train of thought here. Are you saying that some of these decisions might not necessarily be ideological, but they're more financial? Like we can do Shalabal instead of
it's always that ideology of money, of greed. Having worked in the comic book industry, I don't know this for a fact, but I have heard from many other comic book artists and writers that I work with that a big reason Miles Morales was created is because Steve Ditko, co-creator Spider-Man, his family's in those lawsuits with Marvel and Disney about the payment and the ownership for Spider-Man. So it's like, if we make a derivative character, we don't have to pay you. So that's a big reason why that, across the Spider-Verse and all that, why they make those kind of characters. That's what I've heard. I don't know it for a fact, but it makes a lot of sense. So, because I know myself working there, if you make up characters, you get participation. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but the derivative, it doesn't seem to work that way. Derivative characters.
Yeah, the derivatives can be technically owned by the publisher outright and not necessarily an individual within the publisher. Right. This one here is like, well, I think to the point, it's like there might be an agenda, but at the same time, they're also getting a win because they're using this Shalabah, who as Shalabah as the Silver Surfer is technically a different character than Shalabah, the wife of Norn Rad, like not with the power cosmic in there.
Right.
So that differential allows them to basically say, well, we don't have to spend, say, $40,000 on a rights usage to the estate who created Norn Rad for that character. We can spend a fraction of that for Shalabah. We still get our Fantastic Four, and that allows us to spend the money for, say, characters like the original Fantastic Four and Galactus. That money goes out to them. So now we've saved on our budget with regards to this one character that is like the original, but not enough for us to have to pay out a full amount to that licensing right. So it's a 2-for in this case here. It's basically
ticking the extra box is an added bonus on that, right? I mean, it's primarily a financial decision, but also, everybody knows that most of these big media companies have effectively built into their own internal laws that you have to sign a certain amount of minority candidates for screen talent or a certain number of women on screen in any big production. It's eligibility criteria for award shows. Like, there are all these many different incentives to go along with this sort of thing, which don't actually rely on anyone at the company being a dyed-in-the-wool progressive political activist, though I'm sure some of them are. The rest of it is just this huge system that's built up, which has almost become self-perpetuating at this point. So, like, it's financial, it's also tick box, it's also slightly ideological, but nobody can really say exactly which decision is motivated by which thing.
Oh yeah, Warner Brothers discovered this when they invented Terry McGinnis for Batman Beyond. They didn't have to worry, like, if that's a Paul Dini, Bruce Timm type of character, they don't have to pay those guys a whole lot when it comes to using derivatives, using him in future works and comic books and stuff. They actually have a really sweet deal for them in that case. To Gabe's point, yes, not just Miles Morales, but the thousands of other variations of Spider-Man that have come out are all profitable. They did the same thing with between Carol Danvers and Kamala Khan with Miss Marvel. They wanted to kind of revise that, and they also changed Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel, so that's a new derivative too that the original creators of her don't get a piece of as well, because the way those publishers work now is, even with the contract stipulations, part of that contract is that whatever you create, the IP is now owned by them. It is not yours. And they even go so far as to say, if you create an IP that you're going to sell independently and not at the behest of the publisher, they own that too. And if you don't catch that in your contract and you've signed that away, they can then come in and take your IP if you decide to leave more. If you create a character while you're working at Marvel, and you started publishing that comic book under your own label and did your crowdfund and stuff, and then you left Marvel could actually legally make a claim on that if you signed the contract saying that they own any IPs you make on your own.
That you make?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You gotta have your attorneys read
sign
these things.
Yeah, you don't have to sign it, and you can actually do you can revise that contract to remove that thing, and they'll probably agree to it and whatever. But if you don't, and you do sign away those rights, and you create an original IP and you publish it privately,
It's theirs.
If Marvel can claim ownership for it because you signed away that right. But if you quit and then create something, then it's your own and you're safe and free and clear, as you should. But I mean, it's not just in publishing. Regular mom and pop, like Walmart, has these types of contracts when you get hired. If you work for Walmart and you develop an intellectual property that you sell, Walmart can actually claim ownership of that because you signed away your IP rights.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I want to ask Gothix, and this is open to everyone. Do you see an end in sight, especially in the video game area? Because that's where you started. Like, do you say like in 3 or 4 years from now, this is going to die out? Enough people will have woken up?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Not at all. I mean, this stuff has been happening for generations. If you really think about it, like these DEI things, it's going to keep getting rebranded. Like, for example, earlier in the conversation, we were talking about like the public education system. And I think the script doctor mentioned something to the effect of, instead of homeschooling your kids, taking your kids out of school, take back control of the school. Well, if we look at the school system, for example, like they took faith out of the school system and instead started teaching other stuff, and it's been a slow drip. Like, and Thomas Sowell talked about this too. Like, if you take, for example, sexual education, we introduced teaching sexual education into the public school system, and the result of that has been an increase of STDs and an increase in teen pregnancies. So obviously that isn't doing anything. But so when we talk about like woke, people have different definitions of what they would define as woke. And so like all that to say, like, yeah, this has been going on for years. It's been a different format of it. Maybe we haven't been really cognizant of it, maybe because it's so overt and it's in our face and it's affecting our lives. Maybe that's why we're paying attention. But all that to say, like, yeah, it's just going to keep evolving and getting rebranded into other things, which is why I emphasize the importance in being anchored to something that transcends just what we see in culture, because culture is always changing.
Good point. I'm going to read some super chats, then we're going to jump on something too. Fletcher, bring him up. I think we got Snake Oil Sean for $10. Keep up the good fight, Giant Slayer and panel members. Thank you so much, Snake Oil. We will. Hannah Reynolds gifted 10 Georgia Giant Slayer memberships. Thank you, Hannah. I'm going to see you at the membership stream. Cara Duen became a YouTube member. Thank you very much. And Carol, wasn't it your birthday? Go back to Carol's real quick, Fletcher. No, not Cara Duen, the one before that. Real quick, I think it's Hannah. Okay, because is Carol here today? If Carol's here today, it's happy birthday for you. Happy birthday, Carol. Okay, let's go to the next one. And Melvin Deeply for £5. This is history repeating itself like a modern inquisition. If they had real power, people would be burning on stakes. They're zealots. Couldn't agree with you more. And then we have Hypnotic and Rapture for $5. If DEI is the mini boss, what about the final, insidious boss known as Bridge? These leftist monsters are trying to make it inescapable. Well, I think Gothix was just talking about that, in the fact that they're going to keep rebranding it, because now they're starting to talk about the bridge. Because people, I mean, when my 80-year-old almost aunt says, hey, you know about DEI and ESG? I'm like, okay, yeah, time for a name change, rebrand.
Right.
Next one, we have Jim Alaska. Are you going to be in Vegas? Jim, that's where I first met him. Good man, great person. Gifted 20 Georgia Giant Slayer memberships. Thank you, my friend. Really appreciate it. Magna Defender 98 for $5. Have you guys seen Miraculous Ladybug? It's a French superhero cartoon that's so bad, it's good. It beats 90% of the garbage on Disney Minus. Never heard of it. I'll check it out. Anybody heard of it here? Miraculous Ladybug?
No.
I have no idea. The one thing, what was interesting is in the different interviews and press pieces that have been put out by Disney, like, we listened, we heard during this proxy battle, and we're representing the shareholders, yada, yada, yada. And I found this on Twitter. I don't know if y'all heard this one. She had a very powerful statement.
Good morning. I am Chloe Cole, patient advocate for Do No Harm, a group that seeks accountability in the medical profession. I am presenting proposal number 7 titled Report on Gender Transitioning Compensation and Benefits, sponsored by National Legal and Policy Center. Disney pays for gender transition interventions, but not detransitioning care. Therefore, the company discriminates based on gender identity under EEOC regulations. I speak from personal experience as someone who was deceived and physically harmed at a young age by gender ideology validated by the medical industry, and pushed to the masses by corporations like Disney. Influenced by modern media and social networks, I began to transition to male at age 12. By age 16, after practitioners I trusted encouraged me to take puberty blockers and get a double mastectomy, I tried to come back to reality.
So she goes on because she wanted to ask shareholder questions. And this time during the shareholder question period for Bob Iger, they didn't show real human faces. They didn't show the names of the people. It was an AI bot reading the questions. So many were asking, how do you even know if they were real? So she put her question on Twitter. She's like, I asked my question. It was freaky listening to that shareholder meeting because you just had an AI bot. This is question, and it would go on, but there are no real people. So we've come to this point. We got the silver surface going. Now we have it's entered gaming. The one question that I've had is because gaming, I see it different. It's like all the gamers who play, like when we had everyone tried to cancel the Harry Potter game, remember, from Rowling? They were like, you got to cancel it, but it only blew it up. It seems like there's more of a direct impact when gamers come together. Like when they say, this is bad, we're not going to play it, or we're not going to do it, or they've tried to put in pronouns, or it's got Sweet Baby Ink behind it, or it's a shitty game. It seems like there's a more direct impact than in a Hollywood film.
George, it's funny, and I'm sure Gothix can elaborate on this. The gaming industry is very unique in the sense that with Hollywood, you basically have a monopoly on distribution, right? Like you can make anything you want, but if nobody sees it, it's kind of like, just an expensive exercise. But with gaming, there's so many independent studios where it's like, you could make a game out with using like an AI thing. You don't even have to know how to code anymore. So like because the barrier to entry to create competition in gaming is so low, it's much easier for gamers to be like, I'm not going to buy this AAA game that has the DEI in it. I'm going to go with the indie studio that actually made a fun game. This is why you saw like Helldivers 2 blow up and stuff like that. So like gaming is actually a harder nut for the DEI to crack because there's so much competition there. Whereas when it comes to movies and TV, unless you're a big studio that has like hundreds of millions of dollars to produce stuff, but not only that, also the distribution network to get it out there for the masses to consume, you're kind of shit out of luck, right? So gaming's very unique in that sense, in the fact that the barrier to entry to create games and get them to the masses so that people in the gaming industry can actually vote with their pocketbook is very low.
What do you think about that, Gothix? Do you think there's more, like, do you think gamers would have a better chance of stopping the consultancies and their power, like the Sweet Baby Ink, like the Black Girl Gamers, or this new company that I found, GamerX, GAY, because of that direct?
I mean, I can definitely sense, like, objectively, there's a lot more of an effort from the gaming community to shut down this stuff, which is great to see. I also think another aspect of it is like gaming touches a lot of different categories. Like you got people who are in esports, you got live streamers, you got people that do it as hobbies, you got commentators. So you have a bunch of people that their lives may just revolve around video games. And I think that extends way beyond what the movie industry can do. So maybe that has an aspect of it. But I think I agree with what Matthew was saying.
Okay.
There's the additional thing, which is gaming demographics skew very heavily toward men in terms of like certainly for the bigger budget AAA releases and things like that. Mobile gaming is different, but certainly for like anything that you would consider to be an actual game, the demographic is pretty heavily skewed toward men, and it automatically makes it less receptive to certain of these messages, given that these messages are almost uniformly geared toward trying to piss men off. So you've got a great confluence of factors in gaming. You've got very, very strong, almost fanatically strong fan communities for individual properties. Like the equivalent in movies would be Star Wars fans, Marvel fans. Each game has a community like this. You've got the gender demographic thing, which makes it much more oppositional. You've got the fact that it's much more of an organically built community than Hollywood is because of the prevalence of online gaming and the low barrier to entry that's already been mentioned. And on top of that, you've got the ability for foreign game companies to put their product into the market much more easily than foreign studios have access to, say, American markets for movies and things like that. So like, there's a huge confluence of things that makes gaming probably slightly harder to attack from the quote-unquote woke perspective. The danger probably will be when it comes to distributors, though, because if you look at the market share taken up by something like Steam, and I think this is one of the reasons that there's been a lot of talk about community managers on Steam recently, is that Steam is almost like the one single identifiable weak point, because Steam moderates and manages and hosts so many of these independent projects as well. If you're able to successfully capture Steam, so to speak, ideologically, then you have more of a barrier for independent entries into gaming, which could otherwise undercut this prevailing political narrative. So, like, it's not immune to it by any means. It just has more natural inbuilt defenses.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that.
Is,
what is it?
Oh, I have a graphic I'm sharing if you want to see. This is, I've seen this on the internet plenty. I'm sure you guys have all seen it. I'm sharing my screen.
Let me see it.
And it's from 2020 voting, kind of broken down demographically. But if you look at it, Platoon is right. And when he talks about that gaming being such a male thing, look at, like, if only men vote, men are typically conservative. Masculinity is more about meritocracy and all that. And so, of course, gaming being very a male thing, it's like, no, we don't like woke. In general, men don't like it, So, yeah, I think that's what helps it. And that's a frightening thing to think about, what you just said about them taking over Steam and then not allowing these indie studios in that Matthew was talking about, those indie studios, so hopefully they're able to stop that,
Because, I mean, you see something similar playing out on, say, like mod websites. Is it Nexus Mods, I think it is, which is now quite well known for taking down certain mods that do things that the owners of the website don't particularly like. And that's one of these central distributions of third-party and independently created mods for any video game. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when it comes to the potential danger represented by Steam, is that once you've taken over the central distributor of your content, then it doesn't really matter so much whether or not you can take over a specific fan base of a game, because you've just effectively prohibited that thing from being pushed to the market in the first place.
But don't you have people like Cabrutus, who's now blown up because of his Sweet Baby game Detector, like that's drawing a lot of attention and that's bringing people to point out what's going on?
But that's kind of what I'm talking about. From what I understand, Sweet Baby Detected is a Steam phenomenon, right? I mean, that right. is a Steam curated list. And so the attacks being leveled against that by certain games journalists, probably certain games developers as well, illustrate that battle is sort of ongoing at the moment. All that thing is somebody exercising their right as a consumer to point out that a company that's involved in so many failures should probably not be trusted with any future things. So if you say that Sweet Baby is detected in this future game, maybe consider waiting before you spend your money on it, which is absolutely fine in a free marketplace. But when it comes to the attempts to capture distributors, that's the big threat, right? And so if there is a successful attempt to take that kind of curated list down for nothing but political reasons, because that is the sole objection to it, all the harassment claims are pretty much debunked at this point, then you've effectively ceded Steam as this battleground to your political opponents, which is why there's been so much, I think, talk about it, and why people, like the name you mentioned, and these Grums as well on Twitter, have been doing some good work highlighting this stuff.
He has. I wonder if there's a way to do that for Hollywood. For Hollywood, like to detect. We know the studios that are behind it, but I'm talking about what kind of companies are underneath the consultancies, so you would know.
There aren't consultancies in Hollywood; it's all the executives. I mean,
yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy, like from the top down.
Right, I get that part, but I found that there are 37 new DEI companies that are consulting. Again, like I was saying earlier, like Array Crew, they're gaining much more influence with each.
Well, they're gaining more money. That's the question of whether or not they're gaining influence is yet to be fully determined right now, because we can look over at Warner Brothers. It's helmed by David Zaslav. He is not a lefty. He is actually rather conservative. And if you take a look at some of the stuff that he's got on his slate, they look to be traditional films. Right now, Hollywood is killing it at the box office for this year, and they're probably going to win this year and next year overall, because they're spending on low budgets and they're bringing lots of people in. Even though some of them are derivative works or not the most inventive, they're at least warm and comforting enough for audiences to actually say, yes, I'll go see this. Disney, on the other hand, is doubling down, and they're doubling down because Bob Iger is the one who brought this forth. Because they made a massive amount of money with their acquisitions of Lucasfilm and Marvel and the films that those initially put out before all their politics and agendas kind of weaseled their way in. They ended up becoming the leaders of Hollywood, which means that all the other studios follow their lead. But when they started failing the way that Disney failed, they made an about face. Now, it hasn't been 100% done that way. You take a look at Universal, they've released a couple of woke films that have done very poorly compared to some of their other stuff. You take a look at Sony. they kind of sidestep the woke a lot more, but they're still put out bad movies. So they're kind of the traditional old way of things. Paramount is all over the place, where you're like, you don't know what they're really doing. They're trying to put out great big action adventures, but they're also not scheduling properly, and then and they're not getting the IMAX they need, and they're pretty much relying on their like the Ninja Turtles movie that did okay, and then Tom Cruise and Taylor Sheridan shows.
Right.
And so if they're only relying on those three to basically support their production company, their studio, it's obviously not going well for them, and that's why they're doing the talks of merging with Skydance and possibly getting another third party to come in and pick up the pieces. So right now we're already seeing Hollywood kind of, aside from Disney, Hollywood kind of like pushing away from that. But the stuff where actual productions get made is always in the mid-tier level. And the mid-tier level doesn't know what the hell's going on. So that's why you're getting like that comedian being told by a management company, we can't represent you because we have people, the roles that you would get at your level, the people that would be casting those roles, the people that would be producing those roles, those films for those roles, don't want someone like you.
But isn't that racism just 101?
It's illegal.
It is, but it's also the fact that Hollywood is so, not enough people leave to and actually integrate with the locations that they're shooting at to see what the rest of the world is like, to understand that they're actually killing their own little businesses. Like there's rumors that other actors, like of the conservative sort, were going to start up their own studio and union. It's like anyone that knows anything about the industry knows that's the dumbest thing to do, because actors already have their own little private production house that they use to shop for screenplays, co-finance, and put into production movies on the independent side of things that they sell to a studio for distribution. So to create another one of those is just adding to a bigger pool. And you don't actually get anything solved with that by just trying to conglomerate them into one whole, because again, they only get to pick what they want as opposed to what actually gets made.
And Script, this is why AI is such a game changer, and this is why the studios are so scared of it, is because with the rise of AI, you can effectively create an independent film market that could rival Hollywood, where you have one guy in his basement creating a AAA level movie without the need for real life actors, caterers, unions, or anything like that he could then put out and compete with these multi-million-dollar Hollywood, budgeted movies. And I think that's one of the reasons why everyone's so scared of it. But like,
well, visually it can compete, yes.
Well, but I feel like putting putting those tools into the hands of people who can be like amazingly creative and let the market decide, who's going to watch what. I mean, with YouTube nowadays, like people have the ability to independently distribute stuff and monetize it. So I feel like, I know George was going to have a story about AI here in a minute.
Yeah.
The idea here that like AI opens up the industry to anyone who wants to put in the time and effort to create something creative or original or like whatever and put it out there for the masses. That's the biggest threat to Hollywood right now, and that's why they're trying to squash the use of it, in my opinion.
Well, not always. Like Disney's actually kind of right behind it. Other studios are not using it for themselves because at least the people that I find to be rather clever look at AI the same way they looked at the at-home film editing software and at-home cameras that you're able to get, the high-res, high digital cameras. And they're like, this could just be another form of fan film market. And fan films are majority just as bad as some of the bigger studio stuff as well. Like the percentage of good to bad is equal, but at the same time, the people that are making fan films or their own independent stuff that's on YouTube
it opens up the market
it opens up the market a little bit, but it doesn't it hasn't threatened the competition of the studio system
not
for the
just
last
a little
25
bit.
years.
I mean, like right now we're on the cusp of the AI revolution, and once the tools are made so that anyone can create a feature film from like their own home computer without needing to cast actors, without needing to get orchestras to do scores and stuff like that, when you give it when you open up like that, the amount of competition just floods into the market, and you're going to start seeing like some really amazing stuff come out of the AI independent revolution.
Talking about that one
second, amazing stuff, but you're not going to see the things that are actually going to compete because again,
disagree.
People, you can disagree all you want, but I'm going to tell you why you're wrong, and that's because telling a story is not something AI can do.
Correct. I don't have a spirit, but hold on one second. Wait. Before we go on, I want to show something so we can all absorb this and then get back to it because I think it's going to change. I don't know who's seen this or who hasn't. Have y'all seen this? It was just done a few days ago. It's
that was pretty boring, actually.
I know, but I want to get what everybody's take on it is.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not going to play the music so we won't get hit, but I'll play a few seconds just so everybody can get a taste of it.
Are ruled by ancient houses, and the sand.
Okay, so this was done in AI with Midjourney, 11 Labs, and Runaway AI.
Mhm.
And they're trying to show the example of like doing a 68, 70 style Dune, 70s.
Well, I think it says 1950s.
1950, sorry, Super Panavision. Yep.
No worries.
It looks
I mean,
awesome.
let's say, there's sort of two strands for this, and that this video might be a useful way of combining both of them. Let's say, talking about the freedom that AI affords and democratizing filmmaking and all the rest of that, probably should be quite clear that if you as an independent creator use AI and you use the identifiable brands of an IP that is owned by not only a major film studio, but also the literary estate of Frank Herbert, and you say, I'm putting this out to compete with a Hollywood film and make money, you are going to prison. You can't do that. And then on the second point about it being used to democratize filmmaking, again, I like this idea. It's a fantastic idea because in theory, that is what happens. In practice, can you name me a single AI tool currently available, massively available to the public, which is not currently gated in some fairly significant way in terms of the responses it's allowed to give you? I tried just as an experiment to generate a thumbnail for a Dune YouTube video using Bing's AI image generator. But because it mentioned a person by name, it's not going to give me a single image to do with it because it violates some piddling, content risk policy. The most extreme example of this is Google Gemini, when you say, give me a historically accurate picture of German soldiers in 1940, and it decides all the Nazis were black. Like, you can't tell me it's going to be democratizing filmmaking if you can't give me an example of one which is not currently being gated by the company that owns the thing.
I can tell you that there are people out there who are creating their own AI learning systems, but just like when you're doing an actual film production, you use different types of tools for different types of things. And so you can use multiple different AI stuff to get what you want. And to Scrip's point, I don't feel like AI will ever tell a good story, but an independent individual who knows how to tell a good story and has the tools to bring that story to life for other people to enjoy, that's what we're on the cusp of. And if you look at the mid-1990s, when we had like the indie film movement that brought us like Kevin Smith and a bunch of Robert Rodriguez, all these other guys, I feel like we're going to be seeing that, but on a whole different level, because those guys had to spend money on their credit cards in order to afford film and like shoot this stuff and get actors. With AI, you don't need any of that stuff. And as long as the individuals making it are creative and understand how to tell a good story or know who their audience is and how to give them what they want, we're going to see a lot of competition come out of this. And to Platoon's point, AI is advancing so rapidly. In fact, James Cameron said within the span of 2 years, you'll be able to see a movie made entirely with AI that could rival anything that Hollywood puts out. And James Cameron is one of those technical visionaries. So,
Gothix, what do you think about it? I want to hear what Gothix thinks. 1 second.
About AI.
About AI. Yeah, about AI in general in storytelling and entertainment and how it's going to impact, because it might have I wonder if it'll have an impact on the cultural politics.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, definitely AI, I think as a tool is going to be very beneficial for someone who already knows how to do good stories and just utilizes AI to make those stories come to life. I think there's something to be said about utilizing these tools to create something that you already have in your head versus utilizing the tools to become a substitute for other people, for actual people who can create. And there's going to be a downside for using these things for evil. I mean, the fact that even though that Dune video, I haven't seen it, but I mean, that's pretty impressive to see for something. And
4 days.
And so imagine what that's going to look like in 10 years. You know what I mean? And so like, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between AI and an actual human being. Like, I truly believe that. But I think it can be used for good, can be used for evil. I really don't know. I'm kind of on the fence of just like, there's some things that we can do, maybe we shouldn't do, because it opens up the doors for more problems, and I think this is one of them.
And
one
Gabe,
aspect of it is that you cannot make a horror film with AI.
Okay, why?
Let you. Because it's violence and gore and blood and all that kind of stuff.
You can't do it now. They will have avenues for that.
Someone will have to go rogue to do it. Because again, right now I am currently consulting for one of the biggest AI companies in the world right now.
Oh, wow.
And one of the aspects that they want to do is they want to steer AI away from creative works because they think that is a human-only part, and they want to create an AI that's more like what you see in Star Trek: The Next Generation, a research tool.
Well, I can tell you right that I just got into the beta for a AI suite called LTX Studio. And this is a suite specifically designed to make movies. And so the idea here is that you go into LTX Studio and you can create consistent characters for your actors. You can create consistent AI voices. You can create wardrobe, settings, lighting, camera movements, all this stuff. And for stuff like that, that's geared specifically towards filmmakers, you bet your ass that they're going to allow blood and gore and violence and all that stuff, because that's what filmmakers want in order to create stuff. So it's just about who the tools are being made for. And like AI was not a thing like a year and a half ago, right? And we've already come this far. And so like as we go down this path and there become outstanding markets for AI, whether it be AI art or AI filmmaking or whatever the case may be, they're going to go leaps and bounds so that we don't need Industrial Light and Magic anymore. We have LTX Studios that can do all the special effects.
Yeah, but what happens to about the soul? Matthew, what happens about the soul, though? The soul of talking the soul of like Lucas. Because if you had Industrial Light and Magic without Lucas, it would be nothing.
I mean, well, it would come down to the quality of the finished product.
No, the person behind it. Right, but I'm talking about the person behind it. And this I'm going to point to Gabe.
Yes.
We all know Miyazaki, right? So I found this video, which was on Twitter the last couple of weeks, but it's 3 or 4 years old. And he was asked about AI. I just want y'all to tell me what you think about it, because it actually is directly to Gabe. Here we go.
そんなに気持ち悪いものをやりたいなら勝手にやってればいいだけで、僕はこれを自分たちの仕事をつなげたいとは全然思いません。極めて何か生命に対する侮辱を感じます。
これでもほとんど実験なので、
それは分かってます。
その世の中に見せてどうこうってそういうものじゃないです。
それは本当によく分かってるつもりですけど、どこでたどり着きたいんですか。
まあ人間が描くのと同じように絵を描く機械
を作りたいな。
はい。
You're telling Miyazaki that? It's just it's
最後の部屋近いって感じですね。それは人間の方が自信がなくなってくるから。
I mean, to me, that's Gabe.
Let me throw this to Gabe real quick, because he's the comic book expert on here. So, Gabe, how many people out there who don't know how to draw or anything like that, but have such an amazing idea for a graphic novel that they could turn to AI, make their graphic novel without having to spend years learning the craft of drawing and stuff like that, and create something that audiences would love, simply because they now have the tools to do it when before they didn't have the talent to do it? Do you think that that's wrong?
Yes, it's absolutely wrong, because it's about meritocracy. You don't get things you don't earn. And if you don't have the balls and the discipline to sit and draw, well, then you don't get to. That's how it is. Now, on the other hand, I agree with Miyazaki 100%. I wish I could snap my fingers and get rid of AI. I hate it. But I 100% want it to work, and I want it to destroy the Hollywood studios. I want them to have the gore and the violence and all open, no gating, like Platoon was saying, no gating on AI. Get us those movies and make the stuff that isn't woke, and just put Disney and them out of business. Because we were talking earlier, Matthew, about the politics downstream from culture. There's no time to wait. We need to make the non-woke art, and we need to make it as good as them, because you could criticize the woke liberal weirdos in Hollywood all you want. They are amazing writers and actors and singers and dancers. They're very good at what they do, but they're giving evil messages. There's tons of scientific research. You can look it up yourself. That story is the ultimate way to persuade people. And when you persuade people, they will live, act, and vote accordingly. When you just give people facts, the emotional resonance isn't there. And again, there's scientific research that shows this. When you give people a story with the facts, then the amygdala, the fight, flight, freeze part of the brain, the subconscious, All of that doesn't know this isn't real. That's why you jump in a horror movie. You know you're looking at TV. Freddy Krueger's not real, but still you jump because your subconscious doesn't know it isn't real. And when you're convinced that your father's Homer Simpson or Archie Bunker, fathers are evil and stupid, and and every black guy's a gangster and every Asian guy's a ninja, and like all these messages and stereotypes and stuff, whatever, you believe it on a subconscious level when you take it in. Persuasion is like alcohol. You can't drink vodka and go, well, I know this is alcohol, so I won't get drunk because I know. Persuasion works on you whether you know it's persuasion or not. So you cannot ingest things that are bad because your subconscious brain can't tell the difference. There's no time to wait. We need to make the woke, non-woke stuff now. And if AI is the cost of that, then so be it. I hate AI as an artist. It's such an insult.
But AI can also be used to do the exact opposite. It can counter, it can push and further the agenda.
Yes.
I mean, it's not necessarily just the persuasion. It's also the level of the argument as well and how much empathy you can do for it. I mean, the best stories are ones that are general and purpose, but it's the byproduct of that story that has a lesson learned. And ideally it's a broad lesson. Like, don't stab someone in the back that's helped you all your life. That type of thing. General. It's not necessarily politically driven, but it does have something of merit to it. And that's what's always the more convincing. And that's why you have 10% of all stories that are ever published, produced, made, and film stuff be good, and 90% crap because they don't actually reach that level.
But in addition to
what
that,
do you think about it?
Real quick, if I can just make this point real quick, script. So AI is going to be a marketplace. Like, there are some dangers in terms of like who programs the AI, but the learning models are out there so that a lot of people can generate their own AI to compete with the ones that people are like, hey, this isn't giving me accurate information. So it'll be interesting to see like how the AI wars shape out.
Okay, so
I think it's going to run parallel to the fan film market.
Where you think so? You don't think it's going to exceed it?
No, because fan films don't exceed the Hollywood market. And if
Well,
you're
wait, what do you consider a fan
you
film?
transcend out, because when you look at the indie market from the 90s, as Matthew did earlier, what was there like maybe a 10 or 9, like Quentin Tarantino, Steven Soderbergh, Richard Linklater, Spike Lee, Kevin Smith, Wes Anderson, Todd Hayes, Robert Rodriguez. Anyone else came out of the indie thing from the 90s? No, that's it. Out of all the hundreds.
What about
of people
Anderson?
But when you talk about barrier to entry in that time, because it required money, it required logistics, and it required distribution. And so like what I'm saying is that AI is going to open this up. It's not going to be fan films. It's going to be like highly produced actual like movies that can compete with Hollywood AAA films. And as long as they have a distribution channel like I don't know, like YouTube, for instance, and people see them, there's the opportunity there, because if you can make a movie for next to nothing that can compete with like The Matrix or like whatever, then people are going to do that and people are going to consume it. And it's going to create a whole new market. And so like to use the 90s, I was using the 90s as an example of an independent movement, but the 90s were so different in the sense that it required money, it required people, it required crews, it required actors, it required all types of like sets and costuming and crap like that, insurance, unions. With AI, you don't need any of that stuff. And it's going to open up the creativity to a whole new level that I think you're going to be surprised to see.
Platoon, are you with Miyazaki, or you agree with him, not agree with him?
Not to spoil the question, I almost think it's irrelevant in the sense that it's coming whether we like it or not. There's nothing you can do about it. Am I with him? I don't. Yes and no.
Of what he's saying.
It sort of has the hallmark of sort of the old Luddite movement in England. So like Industrial Revolution. Actually, the guy Ned Ludd never existed. He was kind of an urban myth. But this idea that somehow replacing humans with machines devalues the nature of work itself. And there's a vested interest in this because it also makes lots of people unemployed. The fact that in the long run it actually increases employment doesn't matter to people who are about to immediately lose their jobs to this thing coming down. But the fact is it came whether or not those people wanted it. There were massive protests, people broke factories, destroyed machines, and here we are now with mass industrialization. There's only so much you can do to stop it. There is still a market for the old sort of hand-spun, hand-woven stuff, the kind of things that were being produced before we were able to mass produce it by human hands. But it's one option in a marketplace. It's if you want to pay extra for human skill, knowing that a person put all of their creativity into it, you can do that. But if you don't really give too much of a shit and you want something a bit more generically mass-produced, you can go for that as well. And most people tend to prefer the generically mass-produced shit precisely because it does a job and it's cheaper. On the specific art point, I think I understand the temptation to say that it increases creativity, and I think it would be lovely if that were true. But I also think that, I'm sitting in a writer's room pretty much every day for, writing video games and things. And I work with an editor on the YouTube channel. And one of the most enjoyable and I think the best and most productive parts of this entire process is the collaboration you have with other people. Like the work of art that results from what you're doing isn't just you typing a prompt into a computer which can scan 10,000 images and give you what it thinks you want based on data. It's another person's creative imagination marrying with yours and producing something that maybe neither of you fully understood when you started creating the thing. And the result tends to be more interesting. That's the creative process. Otherwise, you're just prompting a machine to say, what's probabilistically the thing I'm referring to? Give me what I can't even imagine myself. As closely as my words correspond to it. I don't necessarily think creative. I think you're just actually handing out the job of creation to a machine that has no conception of it. So I'm probably more of a doomer than an optimist on this at the moment, but
I got you.
There are definitely upsides. There are definitely upsides as well.
I just the one thing I mean, I look forward to AI, just to wrap this up. I look forward to AI, but I also know that it's not going to be, where's Miyazaki going to come from? Where's Tolkien going to come from? It can't, I don't think it can reproduce that.
It's not going to produce that, because just take a look at YouTube and the music industry, or even the entertainment industry over the last 20 years. What do we get? We got Justin Bieber, Lily Singh, Shane Dawson. That's your metric. That is your metric. You are only going to be good if you actually have talent and skills and put the effort in to be good. AI is not going to be the great equalizer you think it is. And the fact that it's going in this direction is antithetical to what its purposes are. It's supposed to actually do the more dangerous and not creative stuff so that you can be creative and be able to explore new skills and be able to do all these things. The certain methods that are being used right now with other companies is really just to reduce costs at the expense of the human worker and not in a valuable way either. It's like, it's not going to go the way you think it is. That is why I was really happy, because I made a lot of very cogent arguments as my real self in public during the WJ writer strike with AI and what was going on. And that's what got me this consulting job. Gotcha. And it pays incredibly well. And at the same time, it affords me to also keep writing, because I'm actually in negotiations right now with some screenplays. I'm
awesome, cool,
so, which is fantastic. But I'm only able to do that because I know how to do my job well.
Right.
Another person who just wants to use an AI prompt to do creative writing, all they're going to get is not necessarily an actually inventive or original product. They're just going to get a hodgepodge of copy and paste, resorted and reorganized text that looks on the surface like it is a story. But when something actually gets produced and put out there, it doesn't resonate with an audience as a story, because
I call it like the rebel moonification of storytelling, right? There's everything you imagine Rebel Moon is just this.
Script, you keep going back to like the AI writing, but I'm more about like the AI
production
effects, images, sound, music. Like there's always going to be someone behind it. And if you look at Hollywood, there are a lot of uncreative hacks in Hollywood that just turn out like terrible stuff. And it's going to be the same thing with AI, but it's just like the tools are different, right? So like when you give someone who has the talent the right tools to do what they need to do, whereas before they might not have been able to do it because of lack of money or lack of support or whatever, you're going to get a whole lot more great stuff in the market for people to choose from. And I just think that like Platoon said, you can't stop this wave of AI. No. And when it comes to Miyazaki, like he like these guys are like, hey, we want to generate, a tool that can create animation that looks like yours. And he's like, that scares me because that would put me out of a job. But eventually someone's going to come along and like Gabe, come up with a new drawing style, because that's just how they're naturally gifted. And then that will be turned into AI so that other people can do that same thing. So it's just one of those things where I feel like this is going to be a revolution for creativity and open up the Hollywood market so that, like Gabe said, we can compete with Hollywood, as opposed to like being forced to go through the studio system and have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to make stuff that can compete.
I do think this about any sort of technological application with art, with Photoshop, with Procreate, all these tools that I use to make comic books. I like to draw mine on pencil with real ink and all that, but I can do them digitally if I need to for speed. But if you don't learn the fundamentals of art, if you don't know how to actually write, if you don't know how to actually draw, the AI is not going to help you that much. It's going to be doing all the work, and it's not like us. You see AI art, and it's just
not the same.
And it's not going to understand the hero's journey and the 3-act structure. It's not going to get it the way we do, because art ultimately is self-expression. And if someone tells me they're an AI artist, I'm like, okay, you're an artist, but what you're expressing is you're too lazy. That's your art. That's what it expresses. How lazy.
There you go. Based as always, Gabe.
That's true.
Hey guys, I gotta bounce. I have a plumbing thing. I actually have to work
Okay.
on my house. Gothix, nice to meet you. Matthew, you too. Platoon, Script Doctor, it was a pleasure as always. Yeah, awesome guys. Guys, follow me on Twitter, YouTube, and all that. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for the invite, George. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Gabe. Have a great week. Gothix, I wanted to share with everybody, if I could, your trailer for the documentary. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. I want everybody to go check this out. Go watch it. Here we go. Load it up. Because, like I said, I finished watching it last night, and I thought it was amazing.
Is it on YouTube?
It is on.
It's on Lore TV right now. Lore's a new streaming platform, and we're trying to get it on Amazon Prime soon.
Here we go.
There is no redemption. There is no conversation. It is whatever we say about you is truth, and you're done.
One friend did it with us. He heard our side of the story, and he was just like, oh, wow, this is completely understandable. I see where you guys are coming from. Then he writes us later on, we weren't the right type of Black friend.
Breaks on that for a while. I don't know how much out of this time I need right now. I need to clear my head. I haven't been feeling myself. I think it's time for me to take a break. Like, I just feel like I'm kind of floating without any purpose right now. They brought up my boyfriend. They wanted to know if he was white, because if he was, that would have made sense to them of why I was acting like this. Seeing people automatically say, okay, the reason you have a problem with this is because you're racist is an issue for me. I said, we need to stop doing this. I'm talking in a matter of 24 hours, I became... Over the course of 4 days, I had more racism towards me from other people that looked like me than in my entire existence on this planet. What's the next step once they realize I can't, attack someone on social media and make them disappear? So what do we got to do now? Is physical assault okay? And I just see like these pools of blood, and I'm like, okay, I'm panicking now.
I love it. Powerful message. I mean, you took the blows and you kept going. I'm glad you joined us today. I mean, you brought a lot of insight.
Thank you.
We all had
being here.
Oh, thank you so much. There were people in the comments who were saying that a lot of Disney they feel today is written by AI.
Really?
No, I don't know.
I think Madam Web was written by AI.
Seriously?
Seriously, yes. I actually took a couple of situations from the movie, entered them into an AI prompt that I had access to, and I got nearly identical aspects to it. And this is an AI prompt that doesn't have real-time data, so it's not able to adopt or appropriate current film and television right now. And the only thing it changed was the female character who was living alone and talking to the landlord about rent. Instead of the landlord coming after her, she just went after him and said, hey, rent's going to be late, but all the exact same lines verbatim were generated.
Unbelievable.
Like, that is pretty horrifying.
I always assumed that AI would have more self-respect, but maybe not.
You think?
well, didn't they have to do reshoots during the strikes, and so like it would make sense if they just used AI to.
They actually finished production right before the strike.
Well, production, but reshoots.
Reshoots didn't occur. I don't think so, because they didn't go back in February, and because again the actors were on strike only a month or two later. And I don't think the reshoots occurred, if there were any, until November or December.
So I know a big
shut down pretty much.
A big part of the strikes, and this is so Hollywood, where it's basically like you have these sleazeball producers, right, who would use AI to generate a script for a movie, and then they would hire a writer for like less than, because it's a rewrite fee, to come in and rewrite the script and make it good. Than to actually like hire a writer to generate the script from the get-go. And so they're able to like kind of skirt union rules and pay writers less just to, rewrite an AI generated script. And I think that was a big part of like the WGA complaint against
WGA.
AI.
Asylum Studios was doing that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is
I think Iron Man scripts, and then we just change it from Iron Man to Iron Guy. And then
all I know is I think that some AI is making management decisions over at Disney. Leslie Headland for Star Wars Acolyte. Come on.
No, that's just women stick
Seriously?
together. I mean,
I
women
know,
are
but
the
she has
psychology.
no ability. No ability.
Oh, but
But
ability has
I would
nothing
say
to do
this.
with it. It's a kind of a cultural aristocracy. This has always been the case.
It has.
All that matters is who you know principally. And once you're in, if you make the right friends and you keep the right friends, then you will get promoted almost irrespective of what you do. That's basically as old as human society.
And when you're
Unfortunately, we
looking at-
don't have the means to get rid of them.
No, when you're looking at Disney Plus and when you're looking at the shows they have done, Jon Favreau is by far the best and most attuned writer out of all of Disney Plus. After that is Dave Filoni, who is bottom of the barrel. So you have Leslie Headland, who did Russian Doll. She's actually the second best writer Disney has hired on their Disney Plus shows, just on actual skill and talent,
writer,
even though she kind of sucks overall.
as a director, I mean, when I saw, well, hey, okay, how do I separate this out real quick? Headland, she gave a speech, and I had the clip, and then it disappeared from YouTube, where they were asking her, "How did you get your first job?" You know, it's like Harvey Weinstein's assistant. Okay, how did you do your first job, your first film? She's like, "I didn't know what I was doing. Don't know how to make movies. Don't know how to make shows. Didn't know. I just bullshitted them." And then when she came out a couple of weeks ago saying that she hired a writer for the writer's room for The Acolyte that knew nothing about Star Wars, zero about its history, I'm like, why in the world would you hire someone to work on a Star Wars show that knew nothing about the history?
Well, George, actually, Star Trek did that a lot under the Brandon Braga regime, where they would specifically hire people who had no connection to Star Trek, no knowledge of Star Trek, and it was because the people who were Star Trek fans would constantly be calling them on their creative decisions, and they just didn't want to deal with that type of drama. And so it was actually easier for them to like hire people that have no knowledge of the franchise.
But you had a foundation. But you had a foundation. But you had a foundation next to it. People who knew Star Wars, right?
Doesn't matter. Because here's the thing. This is what's being obfuscated by this. The point of hiring someone that doesn't know anything about the franchise is not about their knowledge of the franchise. It's that they want someone that knows the fundamental rules of story first. Now, that doesn't always work out. But if someone knows how to tell a really good story, they will be able to tell a really good Star Wars story. Or a Star Trek story or a Lord of the Rings story. That's what they're looking for. If someone is just a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan, there's nothing in there that says that they can tell you a good story.
Correct. But don't they have to know some history in order to be able to know how it?
You can learn that at any point in your life ever.
Yeah, you can learn it on the job. This was the thing with Andor, right? So that Tony Gilroy signed on to do Andor and freely admits that he's not the biggest fan of Star Wars and had to do a lot of research in order to tell the story that he told. But by being, a very good writer who was able to do the research, and he probably had people around him who knew more than he did. But his foreknowledge wasn't the prerequisite of the quality of that show. Like, it's actually quite helpful sometimes because we are big fans of certain things, and we can nerd out about the specific factual details or lore history of any particular franchise, which actually does not get you any closer to producing a good script necessarily. Right. Because most casual fans, and certainly if you want to expand your audience, you also need to be able to tell a story in a way that's not only understandable to dyed-in-the-wool fans of that thing. You need to be able to tell a generally good story in a universally understandable way, and it can actually help to have people outside of the fan base with that process because you're kind of explaining it to them as they go, and they're looking for things that you're not necessarily looking for because you make assumptions they can't make and vice versa. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's
you don't think it's a bad thing completely?
It can be. It can be.
A huge fan of Irvin Kershner was not a huge fan of Star Wars when he got the job to direct Empire Strikes Back. Yet he directed Empire Strikes Back. He contributed to the story of Empire Strikes Back. It's it's probably the best Star Wars movie.
It is. But he has ability. I guess I'm coming from the perspective. I don't believe Disney has a lot of people with that ability to tell a good story. Maybe that's where I'm coming from.
They probably don't. And that's just a practice of their hiring, because I'll put it to you this way. If you want to look at two people in all of Hollywood with regards to writing quality, you take a look at Nicholas Meyer, who knew nothing of Star Trek and wrote The Wrath of Khan and Undiscovered Country. Then you take a look at Dave Filoni, who knows everything of Star Wars and gave you Ahsoka. Which do you want in your writer's room, a fan or someone who knows how to tell a story? I'm always
someone who tells a story. Yeah, so obviously.
Fans,
ideally both.
Franchise is valuable.
Yeah, that would be great to have both.
But I would rather have you guys learn story and transcend fandom to become creatives than just be a fandom and rely on that and claim that you can write a better story. Because that's it. Because I love the fans to be able to, fall in love with the story, the architecture, the characters, the people that write those stories. But if you want to actually compete with a writer, you can't just rely on the fandom alone. You've got to learn all the other basics. And I
Good.
encourage everyone out there that is a fan to learn those basics, because you will get
Oh.
better stories as a result of that.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. You want both.
Actually,
Now,
I would say if you're a fan, don't learn story, because you'll just be constantly disappointed with everything you watch.
oh, well, that's
So bad.
yeah.
That is also
That's
probably
my
true.
curse. I'll sit
Yeah.
there and watch stuff, and I'll just be like, "This is horrible," and everyone's like, "What are you talking about? This is great."
But he turned into Vader. He Vadered. Wasn't that amazing?
Pacific Rim's the most brilliant movie ever made. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Wow. All right. This has been wonderful. I love having y'all. Fletcher, let's read the last of the super chats as we wrap up. Okay. From Mexican Iron Man, member for 3 months. You're the producer and you're sending. Gabe, my shirt arrived. Well, Gabe just left. Looks great and it fits great. I will tell him. Thank you. And we got Man of War 665, Neighbor of the Beast, member of 3 months. Standing up and speaking out is a noble undertaking, but don't discount the crippling power of fear. The wages of integrity can be quite punitive. Speaking from experience. Thank you, Man of War. You're in Vegas, I think, right now. Ramon Crows became a YouTube member. Welcome aboard, Ramon. Udite for $10. Subbed with Nerdrotic and Ripperwan. Just noticed I was unsubbed by YouTube. Resubbed and notifications were on, like I had them set before. I've heard of this going on, but it's the first time YouTube did it to me. Join the club. Thank you. Thank you for resubbing. I understand you completely. Antraxa, I think that is Bolivian currency. Bolivian Eleva, I think it is, for 5 Bolivian leva. If you believe that Dune's AI is impressive, just wait until you check out Sora AI. It's on a whole other level. I've seen Sora.
Its lighting is a little off, but it is creating some pretty convincing models.
It is. It's pretty wild. What do you think of it? Have you seen that, Gothix or Platoon?
I've seen it. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. But that's the one, isn't it? They announced that they'd hired a team of, I can't remember what the specific, like red liners, red scripters, red something or others, in order, like, before they release it to the general public, they're going to make sure it can't do anything harmful by way of disinformation, misinformation, and like all of the things that make it potentially useful and interesting could well be ironed out of it before it actually goes to a general marketplace.
Oh yeah, because people are actually really disgusting. Like I've gotten on. I did 2 weeks ago a safety review of beta testing of users that beta tested a model, and they were very lewd and gross stuff. And it basically had to train the model to be like, yeah, you have to politely reject this, this type of stuff. And it's all on the creative side of things. When you take a look at the research stuff that AI models do, the amount of books and sources that they're able to pull from and cite and link you to is phenomenal. Like it's probably one of the best research tools you can get, because it gives you a brief summary, and it's not 100% correct, but because it gives you accurate sources that you can actually research and follow through with yourself, it makes it incredibly helpful. And I think that's going to be the direction of what AI will eventually end up doing after it gets through all the muddleness of everybody else's experimentation.
I've just spent the last week correcting ChatGPT on the plot of Dune, though, so I'm not too faithful in
they got it wrong?
capabilities. Yeah, frequently gets it wrong.
Yeah, they get it's called AI hallucinations, where it basically it pulls from other sources and accidentally gets it involved in there because of either similar or derivative works that the AI is not capable of distinguishing, because technically it's not really artificial. It's a simulated model. And the AI algorithm or the neural networks that are being toted about by some of these people on these talk shows, they're talking out of their ass, because it's not an actual real neural link or neural network of models. It's really just a massive recall server of information that's able to just reorganize and produce output for whatever's taken in. And one of the best aspects of it is that it's incredibly human dependent, which means that AI, if it wants to survive, needs humanity to survive as well. So it's never going to destroy you. You're safe in that aspect of it.
Thank goodness. I'm curious, with your gaming background, Gothix, you think AI is going to have an impact on that?
Maybe. I don't even know. I'm sort of on the same idea where I think it's like, whether we like AI or not, it's going to be here. So I try not to focus too much on it, except that, I think, it's going to cancel out a lot of jobs, maybe make people more bored, perhaps. But yeah, it's here.
Okay. Princess Fiona for $2. Oh, by the way, that was not Bolivian. It was Bulgarian leva. Thank you. Princess Fiona for $2. Norms will never have access to the good AI tools. Platoon was talking about that a couple of weeks ago, weren't you? You were saying they were going to gatekeep them or
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to the Sora AI point, is that the version you get is going to be much more restrictive than the version that's currently being tested, just because you can't threaten to release something which has no checks and balances on it. And unfortunately, as soon as you accept that there need to be checks and balances, you have to appoint a bunch of people to institute them. And those people will be the big flaws that make the AI less useful than it might otherwise have been.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And there's some that'll just do exactly what happened with Google's Gemini.
Yep.
That was ridiculous. Richard S. became a YouTube member. Thank you, Richard, and welcome aboard. And that is pretty much it. Thank you, Gothix, Matthew, Script, Little Platoon. It was wonderful. I hope you all come back. It was, I loved it. We had a great time.
Yeah,
I'll try and be less than an hour late next time. That'd be great.
Okay. Everybody, please thank our mods. They're amazing. Eric K., I believe he's in Vegas now. Lord Thoth, all of you. Fletcher Williams was here behind stage. Okay, remember that if you want to win every battle and stay true to yourself, all you have to do is recall that we never bow down, we never bend the knee. Always forward. Have a great week, everyone. Got to stop the outro there because the super chat came in at the last moment. I don't want to leave it hanging. Bring that up real quick, Fletcher. We have it. It's from Dark Side Droids for $5. It says, Script Doctor made some great points about the importance of one's ability to actually write a great story versus those solely being lore encyclopedias. Script, that was for you.
Thank you.
And since we stopped it there, and I realized I didn't give you all a chance to say what y'all are going to be doing this week. You want to start, Gothix? This is one a day.
I don't even know what I'm doing. I just sort of just like wing it every week. Like, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't have an agenda.
Okay, Matthew.
I'm probably going to be watching Gothix documentary. That trailer was fire.
Yeah.
So we're going to be hosting a lot of YouTubers here in Las Vegas for the Nerdrotic meetup this week. The Salty Nerd podcast, we do our regular live streams on Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys want to check us out over on our YouTube channel, just go to at Salty Nerd Podcast on YouTube, or saltynerdvideo.com will take you right to our YouTube channel. We do every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And then on Saturdays, we have our other live stream, which George has graced us with his presence on before. That's Salty Saturdays. It's a lot of fun. We talk about more topical stuff. The Tuesday show is more about movies and TV shows, but we're going to have Blaine from the Criticalist app in on Tuesday in studio talking about Monkey Man and a bunch of other action movies. And then on Thursday, we're going to have Side Scrollers. And then Friday, we have Friday Night Tights in the studio. And it's going to be a good time had by all. So check us out.
Wonderful. Script Doctor, where can they find you?
You can find me on youtube.com/scriptdoctor, where every Saturday I host a show called Scripts on Saturdays, where we review, but do not spoil, at least the third act, actual screenplays currently circulating in Hollywood, from the Blacklist, the Hit List, the Blood List, all these types of lists and all these other types of aspects, even some colleagues of mine that have volunteered their scripts to be reviewed. We review one per Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. I also have a Patreon where I do follow-up reviews on that, and also tips and tricks on writing as well. And in the off hours, I am fighting AI to make sure it does not take over the creative space. And they're paying me to do it, and I like that.
That's a good job. Awesome. Platoon?
Yeah, no, I've completely lost in control of my agenda, so I don't know where I am either. In theory, there's a Godzilla X Kong video out this week, I think, because that film is special. And then we back to the June video, I suppose. And then, oh god, no, because then there's Velma season 2 and the Acolyte and oh god, oh no. Yeah, stuff will happen on the channel at some point.
Beautiful. I can't wait for your Dune video.
Neither can I, but it's fucking long. I don't even know when it's going to come out at this point.
All right. Well, this was
Knox Goes Away. It's Michael Keaton movie. It came out. Palette cleanser.
Okay.
Which one?
Knox Goes Away.
Knox Goes Away. Okay, I'm gonna check it out. I wanted to see Monkey Man because the trailer looks great. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it yet, though.
It was cool until it turned into a trans rights movie.
What?
About halfway in, it becomes a trans rights movie.
It just killed the movie for me. All right. But I'm going to go in and watch it. Maybe review. No, I don't know. Anyway, this has been a great show. I love Gothix, Matthew, Little Platoon, Script Doctor. We're going to try this one more time. I've never done this on the show before. It's just one of those days. Everybody have a beautiful week. Fletcher, hit the outro.